Hello, romance lovers. Today's story is called Ti Will Become the Perfect Mother for My Son. If you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more exciting stories. A girl in a rich dress was sitting on the floor, and a boy with a sword was approaching her. He had already cut down her knight and was approaching the lady. She did not understand why he was doing all this, because she, the mother, was still alive. The boy's face was angry. Although not a mother, but an ex-empress, said the boy with the weapon. He swung and struck. As a result, the mother died. Blood flowed from her dead body on the floor. The soul flew out of her body. Was she dead? The two of them were separated by a gap of 15 years. How much pain did he have to endure all alone? She asked him for forgiveness, Yuri. The woman could not just disappear. Due to the desire to escape from reality, the lady left a wound in her son's heart. The lady must fix everything. The boy cannot be left in this state. She asks the boy for a chance to fix everything. Soon the lady found herself in a bright, clean room. She does not understand where she ended up. There was an open book on the table. A diary? She saw an entry with a date from 10 years ago. Had she really gone back in time? She left the book on the table and left. She had to part with Yuri right after giving birth. Being the daughter of a baron, the lady saw the harsh looks of those around her every day and felt rejected by everyone. The lady's husband, the emperor, was always away on military campaigns. He rarely visited the imperial palace. That's why his son was his only hope for a happy life. One day, the husband came home and his wife was lying on the bed with the baby. He thanks her for her hard work. She did everything that was necessary. But the emperor leaves the rest to the education worker. The lady was scared, but there was a baby nearby. She looked at his. A woman came up and demanded the baby. She stretched out her arms to the boy, but the mother tried to protect him. She begged him not to take him away from her. The lady intends to raise the baby herself and will do everything to make him happy. The woman reproaches her. What can she give him at all? But she is his biological mother. The woman does not argue. The lady has coped well with the task of giving birth to a child. But did not His Majesty say that the lady has already done everything necessary? She only looked sadly at the guest. This is not a request from the outside. This is an order from the Imperial Majesty. The evil woman took the child and carried him away. The maids were discussing the king's wife from the baron's family, who is not capable of bearing responsibility for the heir. The mother only looked ahead bitterly. She was left with only the painful realization of how powerless she was in this situation. From that time on, the lady lost the right to see Yuri, except for official meetings. The boy is destined to grow up as the crown prince and have nothing in common with his mother. And according to this scenario, the lady's first life ended in death at his own hand. But in the new life, everything will be different. She was beating on the gate and demanding to release Yuri. The guards tried to calm the lady down and reminded her that he would not be released under any circumstances. The girl fought off the guys and asked them to take their hands off her. The empress wants to meet the heir and no one has the right to forbid her, she told them. The guards opened the door and the lady entered the palace. There she was noticed by her grown-up son. The boy recognized his mother. They hugged in front of the guards. The son wondered, did something happen? No, his mother just wanted to see him. In a past life, a conversation between a person with the status of this lady and a prince was difficult. It was considered an insult to the imperial family. Fearing condemnation from others, the lady accepted this fact and agreed to live separately from her son. But now she realized, agreeing to this was a mistake. This time, the mother won't give in so easily. No matter what anyone says, she will make her beloved Yuri happy. She was so emotional that she almost strangled the boy. He wonders why she didn't answer his letters, but nothing was brought to her. The nanny came and told the mother, her name was Daria, that the prince's personal teacher, Miss Adelaida, would soon arrive, and it was time for the lady to leave. The boy should wait for the tutor in his room. Yuri was taken away by the maids, and Daria was forced to leave. The maid is surprised because until yesterday, the prince was sitting quietly in the room, and today he saw his mother. The son told about the letter. So why didn't it reach the mistress? The maid does not understand what is being discussed. If she does not want to be dismissed from the castle, then let her bring the letters immediately. The mistress orders. The housekeeper immediately left. Soon the lady received a box with many envelopes. In his letters, Yuri wrote about his desire to meet his mother and drew pictures for her. Since he does not receive answers, the unfortunate man thinks that his mother does not love him. He hopes that this is not the case and eagerly awaits her answer. Daria read these letters and cried. The boy loved her so much. The maids saw the grief of the mistress. They were also very sorry. She wondered who ordered the housekeepers to do this. But she immediately promised them punishment as soon as she found out who the author of the decree was. The lady ordered the maids to take the letters to her room. She decided to go to the emperor. While she was walking, she came to the conclusion. She must live with her son, but first she must see the monarch. They had not seen each other for a long time. The butler immediately saw the lady and led her into the ruler's office. It was the emperor of the Ilvarian Empire. He was surprised to see the mother of his offspring. Alexander Klaus is the emperor of the Ilvarian Empire. Daria reminded him that it had been a long time since they had last met. The king greeted the light that illuminated Ilvaria. Did something happen in the castle? He asked, but that was exactly what Daria wanted to talk about. The butler invited the lady to sit on the sofa, where tea and snacks were waiting for her. A door that must not be opened. Does His Majesty understand what the mother of his son is talking about? The lady wants permission to enter there. It's a thick barrier, clearly separating her from Yuri. To get in there, you have to be an employee of the education sector, or so that the guards have an order on who to let in. In her past life, Daria never got through the door. But if she can get permission from the ruler, then no one else will have the right to not let the lady in. She tells the king about her desire to get rid of restrictions. These restrictions apply to mother and son. The emperor did not react in any way, and this confused Daria. The lady showed a number of letters. Yuri wrote them to her. There were many of them, and the girl had received the messages recently. It looks like they were locked in some box. Apparently, someone gave instructions that the envelopes should not reach the heir's mother. Someone played with the boy's feelings, but the lady will not forgive it. She is his biological mother, and she is sad that the boy is growing up without motherly love. In this regard, the lady wants to spend as much time as possible with Yuri. The girl will not leave here until she receives permission from the ruler. The blood of the lady cannot be removed from the son. It binds them. The emperor thought all this time. Finally, he gave the lady permission to do whatever she wanted. Was he really giving her permission? He answered. The lady said she would not leave without permission. Daria thanked His Majesty. She had just gone to the exit when the ruler called her. He would give permission, but with conditions. He approached the lady and gave her the key to the door. She did not know what the king had planned, but she was here for her son. Daria approached the door, showed the key to the guards, and informed them about receiving permission from the ruler. Asked to open the door. They obeyed. The lady could now change the future. She entered the garden. He asked where Yuri was, but the servants did not answer, as if they did not know at all. Finally, she saw the boy. He was writing a new letter where he told about a girl who liked flowers. I asked my mother in a letter what kind of flowers she liked. I wanted to pick them together with her. I waited impatiently for an answer. She called her son and he turned around. A second later, she was already reading his message. She apologized for being late. Daria explained that she had only managed to read a few letters, but she promised 6 from now on she would start reading them all until they were finished. She would definitely answer each of them. She suggested starting right away. The son was writing about flowers. I wonder what kind of flowers he was trying to draw here? The boy suddenly ran away. The mother apologized and asked him to stop. Yesterday, Daria was so happy to see her son that she accidentally confused him and he ran away. He wrote so much thinking about his own mother. If the lady had to live her life again, she would not know about it. Daria knows she has to be careful. Children are much more sensitive than parents think. She can't touch a child's feelings just by imagining them from this distant place. Decided to start getting to know her son better today. The girl was gushing with enthusiasm since the morning. But before each meeting, Yuri, she had to drop in on His Majesty. She came to the ruler's office, but he wasn't there. She was told that he had gone to Beltrasian territory to check the troops. Miss Adelaida approached the lady. Does the girl know perfectly well herself? She asks. This woman was His Majesty's aunt. It was she who took the lady's son from her immediately after the birth. Daria promised to return soon if the ruler was not there. Adelaida is ready to open the door for the lady if she needs the key. The prince's mother looked back. Previously, she did not let anyone near Yuri. What came over the villain? She signed the paper and asked the lady to show it to the guards at the door. Before Daria could take the pass, Adelaida dropped it. The evil woman trampled the document. She tells the girl she has no need to interfere in the process of raising the crown prince. The imperial family has a tradition of children receiving education from their father's relatives. Doesn't Daria remember His Majesty's words that very day? Everything else is left to the education officer. Let the lady not say she forgot about it. They passed each other. Let him watch his actions and not do anything unnecessary. Daria picked up the pass from the floor. She knew about the enormous power of Miss Adelaida in this castle. Even for the sake of his son, his mother should not go against Miss in this situation. But to get to know Yuri better, she doesn't have to stay close to him. She can watch. And the boy went to lunch after fencing. An awkward movement and the tomato fell on the floor. The maid picked it up and he apologized. Daria watched Yuri for the whole day and could only say that he was silent most of the time and did not smile at all. And once the mother saw her offspring at the place where they had met yesterday, the girl noticed how Yuri took out something that he had recently put in his pocket. The guy brought the puppy an apple. The dog ate, and the young man reassured him. Let him eat and not be afraid of anything. No one will hurt him. The puppy started licking Yuri, which pleased the boy. It was the first time his mother had seen him laugh like that. South. He had a secret friend all this time. Daria rushed to the side for some milk. She hoped the puppy would like it. Suddenly, Adelaida came up to the boy from behind. Yuri asked not to touch the dog, but the aunt ordered the maids to get rid of the flea-bitten one. One of them grabbed the animal, and the boy asked to let the pet go. Yuri asked his aunt not to do this, but she waved him off. She yells at the guy. He got dirty. She reminded him, he is the heir who should not waste a second of time on meaningless things. For example, playing with the dog. How many times had she told him about the need for one thought? How to become better for this country. For this, the boy would be punished, and now he must immediately pull himself together. And someone demanded not to touch the poor fellow. The servant was meeting the emperor who was returning from inspecting the troops. At last he returned. The ruler was interested in what was new in the castle. The servant leaned towards the king's ear and began to report. So, when it comes to the gate, she does whatever she wants, the emperor realized. And in the garden, Adelaida almost hit him with a stick, but the boy was saved by his mother. Daria asks the miss, "What does all this mean?" The villainess addressed her. Is mother seriously considering ignoring the words the woman had spoken earlier? According to one of the maids, they had noticed the prince's strange behavior and had followed him. They noticed him feeding a dirty puppy. Adelaida turned to Daria again. Her beloved son is disobedient and behaves in an unbecoming manner for a prince. Perhaps his mother's bad blood is awakening in him. Where did they put the puppy? Asked Daria. Such dirty things are usually thrown away, answered Miss Adelaida. And playing with that dog is a waste of time. He's probably in the incinerator by now. The boy looked at it bitterly. In Daria's opinion, this was cruel. She rushed to the villainess, but she extended a stick to her. It was not for a girl to be angry about this. After all, the ruler had entrusted her with the responsibility for aspects of the heir's education, so it's natural that Miss Adelaida tries to restrict Yuri from distractions and harmful factors. It's not proper for a baroness to interfere in the affairs of the empire. If she's got into the palace, then let her roll around like cheese and butter, Yuri screamed, asking his mother to stop. She turned around. The boy was already crying and asking to consider him guilty in this situation. Daria calms her son. He did nothing wrong. But the villainess did not stop. She was sure that the boy had done wrong. The crown prince had shown his playful hypocrisy. Because of him, that puppy had died. Yuri apologized with difficulty. What a pity. He should not shed tears because of the dog. Adelaida laughed. Suddenly, Daria demanded that the villainess shut her mouth. It was a pity to look at her. What is she doing now? The ruler's aunt was taken aback. Even if she did not recognize Daria as the boy's mother, she would not tolerate such an attitude towards herself. The villainess screamed with rage. The girl asked the miss, "Does she know why the boy feels sorry for the puppy?" This shows that he has a kind heart, even though the woman treats him cruelly. Even a child is stronger than a woman, because he was able to keep his heart. And she lost it somewhere far away, in pursuit of meaningless glory. For Adelaide, these were impudent words, but Daria interrupted her. She had not said everything. All the letters written by the son never reached his mother. And why? Because someone ordered them to be hidden in a warehouse? I wonder who it could have been. Was it her? Miss Adelaide? The villainess had a mocking expression on her face. What's going on? The Baron's daughter remembered his past and considers all people guilty of her problems. So far, she has no evidence in hand. The villainess rushed to Daria, but she grabbed her hand. The girl understood why the letters emanated the stinking smell of the king's aunt's terrible perfume. For the first time in her life, someone treated the miss with such disrespect. She screamed. She reminded, "His Majesty the Emperor is her nephew. Daria understands what he will do to her when he finds out about everything." The ruler suddenly approached them. Did they call his name? Everyone bowed to the king. His Majesty himself had appointed his aunt to be responsible for his son's education. Obviously, he must take her side. The miss replied how unpleasant it was for her to be accused of a crime she had not committed. The woman is sure that Her Majesty the Empress has delusional tendencies. Now she is seriously worried about the future of the imperial family. Didn't the Emperor say that Daria's role as a wife has already ended? Adelaida touched her nephew's shoulder, but he demanded that she remove her dirty hands. The villainess was horrified. What did he mean? The Emperor ordered his subordinates to investigate his aunt's educational methods. The woman could not believe that her nephew had done this, and he was told that while he was absent from the palace, his aunt had been doing all sorts of things. She justified herself. No, she was thinking about raising an heir. The ruler pointed to the marks of beatings on his son's body. He asked, "Is hiding the boy's letters to his mother also part of the educational process?" The Emperor tried to respect his mother's closest relative, but he overdid it with trust, and it almost led to irreversible consequences. All actions deserve the death penalty. Miss is horrified and asked to pardon her and forgive her for numerous rudenesses. The ruler told his wife, "She is an empress and must understand that insulting the royal family entails serious consequences." Daria understands this, but her aunt will get off easy in the case of the death penalty. The girl offers to give the villainess a chance to atone for her guilt by sending her to a distant place from here. She must be deprived of her status, position, job, and all the rights of an aristocrat. In other words, death is an easier fate for the villainess than atonement for her sins. The Emperor will think about his wife's wish. Adelaida, lying on the ground, swore allegiance to the prince's mother for a pardon. The girl replied that it was not for her sake, but for Yuri's. Daria expressed another opinion. If Adelaida is executed, the prince will consider himself guilty. She asked her opponent, "Does she know about the Candela region north of here?" There is a monastery there where discipline is of the utmost importance. Miss in the know. This is an icy prison that the worst sinners fear. Sentence from Daria. From tomorrow, this will be the evil woman's second home. The aunt's eyes widened in horror, and the mother and son went into their chambers. Soon they were sitting on the sofa, and the Empress was comforting Yuri. She apologized for interfering at the wrong time. No big deal, the boy thought. Why was Mom asking for forgiveness? She was not to blame here. And the prince himself, quite. The puppy was killed because of him. The guy who met the ruler at the gate entered the room. He brought a gift for Yuri, a cage with that very dog named Lulu. The prince is surprised and happy. Where from? He was ordered to watch his aunt. So, seeing the animal being carried to the incinerator, the boy intervened. The boy also brought a message from the Emperor. He allowed his son to leave the animal on the castle grounds. Wonderful. The mother and son rejoiced. But it was decided to take the dog to the vet first. Better to introduce yourself late than never, the guest recalled. His name is Johann. He is appointed colonel of the 5th Division of the Ilvarian Empire. The warrior says goodbye and promises to see them later. Daria thanks him. Previously, no one cared about her, but Johann turned out to be the one person who always greeted her and said warm words. The girl decided to ask the warrior for a favor. Johann asks to talk about everything that comes to the lady's mind. Daria is sure that fulfilling the request will bring him a lot of trouble. She began to whisper in the guy's ear, "Lulu in a mini barrel of water." Yuri also wanted to take part in this, but remembered Adelaida's words about the dirty dog. Daria decided to help tidy up the animal. The maids were scared. They couldn't let their mistress get her hands dirty. The girl was surprised. It seemed that the villainess's removal and exile had made an impact. The maids tried to comprehend everything and treated the lady with more respect. Everything is fine. It is not just anyone, but Yuria's friend. The maids are not against it, so the work has begun. The mother asked her son, "Does he want to join in?" "It is a puppy. Everything is fine." The boy ran up and started washing the dog. In the end, Lulu was rinsed with water and was stunned. The washed animal looked like a purebred dog. The lady could not even imagine that a cute face was hidden behind the dirt. The boy was incredibly happy. In the office, the emperor received the warrior Johann. According to the latter, the puppy was dirty, and after washing it turned out to be a completely different dog. And if the king had not ordered him to look after Adelaida, the animal would have become a pile of bones. Johann regrets that the ruler did not see how he pulled it off. He could organize a whole show. He is even ready to take this matter upon himself. Alexander asks him not to get carried away. "What measure of punishment did the ruler come up with for the ant?" asked the colonel. "The emperor will send Miss Adelaida to a monastery in the Candela region north of here." The warrior is horrified. He thinks it is better to be executed than to be sent to such a place. The boy thinks it is cruel to treat a woman like that. How did Alexander come to this decision? He answered, "It was the empress who organized the sending of the ant there." Another harsh one. Johann panicked. These words surprised the monarch. The colonel reported one order from Her Majesty. Daria asked to convey to the ruler that he return all decision-making powers to the palace and the secretariat of the ruler, including the educational department. But for Alexander, this is impossible. Handing over the rights to the empress's palace means entrusting the upbringing of an heir. Is Johann sure that the straggler family will not take advantage of this opportunity and attack Yuri at the right moment? After all, he would be exposed to danger. The emperor cannot allow the villains to succeed and their offspring to inherit the throne. But Alexander still trusts his wife's decision. He signed the document on permission, as she wanted. Daria was sitting in the room after the street. When they were completely covered in foam, the son laughed so much. He looks more like a child. The girl is happy about Lulu's return. In his past life, the guy got into the same situation. Then Yuri also lost his dog. What right did the lady have to enjoy life while her son suffered so? For 15 years until the day of her death, she did not notice the boy's suffering. And she could do nothing about his growing up. Daria's non-interference, her desire not to open her eyes and sort out the situation. She will have to bear responsibility for this mortal sin for the rest of her life. She cannot change the past or erase the suffering that Yuri has endured. No matter how much Daria compensated, she would never get rid of the feeling that no matter what she did, it would not be enough. But from now on, the girl would never make him sad again. Emma knocked on the door and asked permission to enter. Behind her stood the son of the royal couple. The boy wanted to tell his mother something. The other day, after his mother approached her son, he ran away immediately. He is very sorry because she helped the boy wash the dog. Yuri should have apologized earlier and supported her. That's why the boy is now asking for forgiveness. He's very sorry. Daria assured him, "Everything is fine." She thinks her son didn't behave like that for no reason. It was because of the dog, right? What if someone finds Lulu? Was the boy afraid for him? The girl is still not sure that the offspring tried to escape in every possible way in order to protect the pet. He was well aware of what others would do if they found Lulu in Yuri's absence. The boy invited his mother to look at the flowers. She immediately agreed. She promised never to leave Yuri alone. They would share everything together and would not leave each other alone. The prince has many heavy responsibilities and he has to carry them on his shoulders alone. The mother hopes to ease this burden on the boy's heart. The mother is ready to do everything possible for this. According to the maid, Mr. Yuri wanted to show her something else. But the boy stood still. The maid nudged him slightly, reminding him of his desire. The mother reassured the child. He could show her whatever he wanted. For example, Lulu is full of energy again, and they played together wonderfully. Or he can tell about a nightmare he had. Daria will hug the boy and will certainly listen to him. Yes, he will even listen to how beautiful the sky was today. Even if nothing special happened, but there is something you want to share, the mother will definitely listen to her beloved son. Daria is just pleased to hear Yuri's voice. She asks him not to think that she might not be interested or have no time for him. For a guy, this is a strange feeling. And it's time for him to go back. The Empress does not object. She repeated to the boy, "If he wants to talk about something, then let him come at any time. Or let him let her know, and his mother will come herself." Daria wondered if by the words, "time to go back," her son meant the Corona Festival? Crown Festival. On their son's 6th birthday, his parents give him a sword and shield, a symbol of trust and love. This ceremony signifies the ruler's recognition of the prince as the rightful heir to the country. Daria asks the maid Emma to come to her after she takes Yuri. They need to discuss something. In the evening, the boy tried to write a letter to his mother, in which he told about his dancing lessons. He was interested, and the prince wanted to dance with his mother. He would practice to ask her to dance after the crown festival. Yuri knew that his mother was an empress, and she had her own duties. That's why she expressed her willingness to listen to her son. But he shouldn't get carried away. Lulu was nearby. Yuri picked up the puppy and started talking to him. The guy doesn't want to disappoint anyone. Emma came to the Empress. Daria said she wanted to make a gift for her son. The maid had to go to the city and exchange the chain with jewelry and a pendant for cash. Emma is surprised by the owner's desire to sell such a thing. And it was a gift in the first month of Daria's marriage to Alexander. Then they were sitting at the table and the girl asked her husband, "Can she keep the jewel? If you don't like it, you can throw it away." The emperor shrugged. Daria happily kept the chain and thanked her husband. With such a gift, the monarch officially recognized the lady as his wife. Emma asked again, "Is the lady sure of her decision?" The lady is sure. The rights of the Empress's palace have not yet been officially recognized, and Daria has no access to the treasury. Besides, Daria is currently on a limited budget and doesn't have enough money to buy a present for her child. So it makes no sense to keep things at home that she almost never uses. Previously, when the Empress looked at this precious thing, she found inspiration in it and felt worthy of the role of ruler. Now she has no need to rely on external supports, since the lady is ready to move forward herself. Daria is sure that a large sum of money will come out of selling the chain, and the ruler presents another decoration as a gift to the maid herself. She was very surprised. The lady recently paid attention to her son, and Daria seems to think Yuri feels some kind of affection for Emma, and maybe even protection. The Empress was relieved to know that all this time the boy had someone who could take care of him. That's why the mistress decided to somehow thank the maid for her work. It seems that Yuri loves flowers. Since of all the maids he feels the strongest affection for Emma, then with the decoration, it will be more pleasant for him to look at the maid. Emma was afraid of that woman's power, and because of that, she was not able to fully protect her child. Will the Empress forgive her for this? Daria pinned the decoration on the housekeeper's dress and counts on her further support. Emma solemnly placed her right hand on her heart and promised her mistress to serve her. Then she asked the mistress what she wanted to give Yuri. Daria only laughed in response. Soon, the Empress received shield traders. Emma was surprised by the lady's desire to buy such a gift for her son. According to the bald seller, the required models are not available and are difficult to obtain. "So, there are no suitable ones?" asked Daria. The bald man tried to calm the ruler. "No, everything will be found for the important day of the heir." He showed the shield. "Is this suitable for the crown festival?" Emma realized. This is a fake, an imitation of a real shield. This seller is so frivolous about the imperial family. The merchant has nothing else. This is the last remaining copy. There was another salesman standing nearby, but he had nothing at all. The guy was very sorry, but his company could not prepare a shield that would be suitable for His Highness the heir. Then he can go back. The bald man thought that this was said to the boy, but the Empress had ordered it specifically for him. The sly bald man's face immediately changed. He received a severe reprimand. Daria thanked him for picking up goods for the August family all this time, but due to today's incident, cooperation with him was terminated. The merchant did not understand what this meant. After all, the Empress didn't even know the cost of the shield. The seller is dissatisfied. What a shame the ruler had to marry such a young baroness. He looked at Emma and suggested going somewhere because the maid is having a hard time with her mistress. The swindler tried to touch the maid, but soon found himself on the floor. What is she doing? He is indignant. Didn't the merchant hear the lady's words? Emma is angry now. Yes, he was one of the family's main sellers all this time. According to the maid, the Empress considered the merchant useless because he now offers goods of dubious quality. He will never be able to show his ugly bald head to the queen, Emma screamed. And then she apologized to the Empress for bringing this swindler to the palace. She is ready to be punished for this. Daria showed her an interesting toy. Thanks to the maid, the lady has a choice among all the gifts. Why should Daria punish her? The lady said, she wants to choose a gift. And the maid did a great job. And the prince's mother will prepare the shield for the Corona festival in another place. The remaining sales guy is forced to tell them a sad thing. Duke Straggler bought up all the shields and swords in the entire country before the festival. For this reason, it will be difficult to find the right models for the prince. The Duke is the Emperor's cousin. His main goal is to remove Yuri by any means necessary and deprive the boy of the right to inherit the throne. He intends to make his son the new ruler. Daria and Alexander's marriage is to prevent Duke Straggler from putting his own offspring on the throne. For the lady, it was a loveless marriage and for the sake of having an heir. And she has a plan for the shield, so the maid doesn't have to worry. She asked her, "Can I trust her to deliver the letter to the city and as soon as possible?" Emma is ready to do it, and the Empress ordered the merchant to deliver 2 types of fabric and buttons by next week. They wonder why Her Majesty is ordering all this. The girl just smiled. When Emma was left with Johann, he happily shouted about the upcoming party for the prince's birthday. The maid asks him not to shout and he falls silent. The Empress wants to help the heir relax a little and relieve tension before the Corona festival. The lady wants her son to know that his birthday is the happiest day. Emma understands her mistress. Johann remembered how his parents cooked a huge pudding for his birthday, and this despite the expensive ingredients for it. The guy remembered such wonderful memories for the rest of his life. The maid is happy for him, but they won't do such a thing. The colonel still understands that the Empress is trying hard for the sake of His Majesty the Crown Prince, and he understands everything surprisingly easily. Emma wonders if Johann will interact with them. The Emperor had previously thought that handing over a document he had signed would be out of place, and the colonel agreed, offering to make the birthday the best. At previous festivals of the crown, Yuri did not smile at all, but this time the Empress will convey her words to him. She wants to tell the boy about her joy that the boy is the son Daria. The maid from the former Adelaida cohort was surprised. When was the last time there was such a fuss in the palace? Probably on His Highness Yuri's birthday, Emma answered. What are they talking about? The ruler intervened. The lady promises to make such a fuss in the palace every year. After all, it is an important day that happens only once a year. Yuri was doing his homework at that time. He was worried about his poor academic performance. Never mind. The boy will speed up right now and finish the assignments by the appointed time. Johann came up and offered to finish the lessons for today. He was ordered to bring the boy to one place on important business. The colonel immediately put the heir on his shoulders and asked him to hold on tight. The boy was slightly frightened, but the warrior joyfully carried him to his destination. But Yuri was sad for some reason. Why did the atmosphere become like this? A little earlier, the boy was brought into the room for the celebration. Everyone started congratulating him and sat him down at a table where there was a multi-tiered cake. Even Johann was surprised by such a confection. The mother asked her son to make a wish. Shouts of congratulations to the birthday boy were heard. Emma admitted that she thought about the boy and tried hard when preparing the cake. Another maid prepared many trinkets for the prince to play with. And Johann made an origami bouquet. It can be used for a lifetime. But suddenly the boy became sad, and everyone noticed. Emma was worried that the cream in the cake had gone sour, and the colonel was worried that he might have injured the birthday boy while he was in the room. Yuri reassured everyone. He was simply celebrating his first birthday. And today he had to take a break from his studies, and therefore the boy did not get the maximum score in one lesson. The prince practices fencing, but it does not go very well. Everyone looked sad. That's why celebrating a personal holiday for Yuri is an unaffordable luxury. The mother approached her son. He made a mistake in one question, and this is a wonderful result. She presented the boy with a toy penguin. Daria gives it to the boy. After all, penguins take good care of their family and loved ones. People gathered in this room who will take care of Yuri as a member of their own family. The Empress wishes her offspring to live a happy life with people he considers close. Daria made the penguin in the hopes that wonderful thoughts will settle in her son's soul. So does he accept his mother's gift? Yuri happily accepted the gift. Yes, now it is his treasure. He thanks his mother for such a gift. The relatives hugged, and Yuri wished that this day would never end. Mom reminded, penguins are very hardworking. Yuri got the hint, promises to try even harder. According to Emma, the little gentleman works harder than anyone. Johann agrees with her. He says, even more than him. That's not true, answered the embarrassed Yuri. But the mother also agrees with her subordinates. The boy is really capable of work, so the penguin is his hard-working friend. People continued to celebrate. They played cards where the birthday boy won and ate a delicious cake. In the evening, the boy's mother visited him. He was already asleep and said something about the cake. Daria thought that it was the cake he was dreaming about. When I closed the door, I felt pain in my finger. I must have pricked myself while sewing the penguin toy. It had been a long time since the Empress had picked up a needle and thread. When they were in their 3rd month of marriage, Daria got a shot. They were sitting at the table with her husband. He asked her how she was doing today. The wife told him how she had been preparing for foreign languages in the morning and sewing in the afternoon. They met once a month, and Alexander always asked the same questions, answering the same way. But now she will take the first step in their relationship. The Emperor announced his intention to return to the personal account. Daria took her husband by the hand and asked him to wait. And did he remember how he had praised his wife's embroidery work the other day? She handed him a scarf and explained. She had sewn it today, thinking about her husband, but the Emperor refused to take the souvenir. He demands that his wife throw out of her head all thoughts about the intention to make something for him with her own hands. It is a waste of time, of which the lady has so little. Let her do something useful. It is impossible that His Majesty does not know the meaning when his wife gives him a handkerchief sewn by her own hands. And what is the meaning of their relationship? From that day on, Daria avoided picking up a needle, but she still did it for the sake of the penguin. Now is not the right time for any meetings with the Emperor. He came up and unexpectedly took the ruler in his arms. She didn't understand why the ruler was doing this. He explained, she had a fever. Daria knew His Majesty was one of those who didn't care about such things. He carried the lady to the bed and asked, what had she been doing all this time? There were still a few days left before the Corona festival, and the Empress had come down with a fever. How untimely. Her finger was bandaged after sewing. And since it happened at night, she got carried away and didn't really sleep, she explained to her husband, wasting time on useless things again? Dissatisfied Alexander. The lady doesn't think so because today is their son's birthday. And for him, remembering how Yuri celebrated his birthday for the first time in his life is also a waste of time. Daria promises to recover before the Corona festival, and now apologizes for the inconvenience. The Emperor went to the exit. His wife thought he wanted to discuss something else. Alexander is going to change the date of the event. The Empress suddenly became firm. This will not happen. The decision to return the rights of the ruler's palace, has she already read the answer? Asked the husband. He asked Johann to hand it over. Daria is surprised. The ruler should have handed over the document properly. He doesn't know whether his wife was told or not, but he signed a contract to return the rights. But the king will still continue to decide who will be responsible for the education of the heir. And he hopes now that Daria has no objections. But she also wanted to make an effort to educate her offspring. Reminded her husband of the situation that arose when he gave Miss Adelaide the right to educate the heir. Maybe the wife wants it. Perhaps the monarch understands this. But will it be possible to trust the teacher she chooses? The Emperor wonders what the chances are that he won't accidentally turn out to be a spy killer sent by the Duke's family straggler. If his wife takes up Yuri's studies, then the villains who want to change the country will turn against her. The husband considers his wife to be young and inexperienced in politics, so she is unlikely to be able to compete with them. Daria understood the hint. The Duke still plans to make his own son the heir to the throne. If Daria is responsible for Yuri's studies, the villains will definitely use this opportunity to eliminate him. But in his past life, the boy was able to prove himself as the next emperor. Yuri's education, then everyone will be sure that His Majesty is simply letting the boy go, as if he is abandoning him. But everything can happen again, and it cannot be ruled out that the heir will be treated badly. The emperor emphasized. This is all he thought about talking to his wife about today. Why? She wonders. The lady did not give her final consent to her husband's decision. Alexander is dissatisfied. He is trying to sum it up since his wife has a temperature, and he has overloaded her a lot today. Does she have something to say? Daria wants to decide who will be responsible for the prince's education, and she will not give up until she gets this permission. Lately, the lady seems to think that the monarch is looking at Yuri as a future ruler, not a son. What does she mean by that? Asked Alexander. His wife asks, has he ever looked at the boy not as the next ruler, but as a son? Through the eyes of a father, he is the heir and the new king who will rule the country, said the emperor. Alexander does not want to raise him as a weak-willed person who will only show his weaknesses to everyone. In other words, the ruler married Daria for the sake of politics? She asked. And he raises Yuri for the state? Alexander clenched his fists. Enough. His wife understood. He does not deny her words. For His Majesty, Yuri is only a means to protect the empire, and there is no love in their marriage. Daria's only role is to give birth to an heir and nothing more. Yes, she knew about it from the very beginning, but still, why is it so sad? The ruler was left alone in the bedroom. He took out the locket and opened them. A photo of him and his wife appeared. How complicated it all is, he thought. Alexander remembered that day. There was a battle going on, and he stood over the body of his dead brother. The unfortunate young man begged him not to die. Could he survive? A warrior approached the boy and said that it was dangerous to stay there. The warrior had to pick up Alexander and carry him away, although he wanted to stay with his brother. In his haste, the young man dropped the bloody handkerchief he had used to wipe the dead man. Now, when the wife wanted to give her husband the handkerchief she had sewn, he saw in the souvenir that the handkerchief was still covered in blood. He refused this thing. Soon, the emperor visited the training where Yuri was practicing fencing. The boy thanks his father for attending his classes and personally supervising the learning process. Why does someone for whom work is the meaning of life spend time with his son? Asked Johann. The emperor frowned. The prince had been showing more impressive sword skills lately. He was already looking forward to beginning more serious practice soon. Remarkable aspirations and skills for a 6-year-old, Johann thinks. The emperor is ready to teach the colonel if he wants, said the ruler, but impatience clouds the mind and creates gaps. Alexander asks not to forget about it. Johann will try to make Mr. Yuri remember it too. But then during training, the boy's weapon slipped out of his hands and flew towards Emma. The sword barely touched the maid, but the boy was very scared. The girl assured the heir that she was fine. The father is dissatisfied. What does his son think about during training? Yuri is timid. Since it was the first time his parent visited his training then, the emperor is strict and angry now. If the sword were real, Yuri would have killed the maid. The boy is very sorry. He really is sorry. Emma tries to calm him down and says that she is fine. The colonel also tries to console the unfortunate man. It's okay. Failure is a reason to take things more seriously, says Johann. And if he and the maid go to the doctor, they can prevent the bruise from appearing. The warrior dragged the surprised maid along with him. The emperor stood before his frightened son, but before his eyes was that moment with his brother on the battlefield. He asks his son to remember. The fear of losing someone makes him stronger. Yuri is really very sorry now. They are done for today, said Alexander. He asked the boy to return to his room. Yuri took the wooden sword and left, and the father looked after him, and again images of the past appeared before his eyes. He stood before the coffin of his dead brother and cried. His relative came up. He was outraged because it was Alexander who wanted to see in the place of the deceased. It began to rain and the ruler hurried to the castle. He walked around the house and remembered his wife's words. She accused him of raising his son as a future ruler, and the father does not see him as a simple child. He asked the maid where the empress was, but she did not see her. Alexander wonders where his wife has gone, but the maid can't help. She went out in such rain, he thought. He ordered the carriage to be prepared. He will be out soon. Soon the ruler arrived at the store where the coat of arms had been. A shield hung. But before he could enter, he saw Her Majesty there. She looked at her husband in surprise. The girl asked her husband what he was doing here. The weather had turned nasty, and he had gone outside. A man's voice from behind the door. "Who's there this time, Daria?" The man recognized Mr. Klaus. His face became serious. Alexander took his wife by the hand. They were already leaving. She asked His Majesty to wait because the man in the store had not yet introduced himself. The ruler whispered the last word quietly. The master asked the client not to worry so much. He gave his promise, which he will not break. So let him not worry and go where he needs to. He asks the lady to return quickly because the heir has clearly been waiting for them. Daria thanked the guy named Hehheart. As they parted, the men gave each other a less than friendly look. And once again, memories from the past appeared before the emperor's eyes. After the battle, he asked Hehheart, it was him, why he saved him and abandoned his brother. The future emperor threatened to never show his face to the warrior again. He hated him now. And now the former savior asked the guests to contact him if necessary. The hero who led the Ilvarian Empire to victory in the East-West War 80 years ago was the commander of the Imperial forces, Hehheart, Alois. He received offers from the royal family, but rejected them. All this time he was stubborn, but in the end, everything turned out exactly like this. The shield created by Hehheart will certainly protect Yuri for the rest of his life. And Daria did not understand why the emperor was sitting in the carriage next to her. Finally, the husband asked, why did she go to Hehheart? To ask for a shield to be made for the Corona festival? The wife answered. The sword and shield that are given as a gift for the 6th anniversary have great value and affection between the prince and his family, and His Majesty understands this better than anyone else. He agrees with this, but Hehheart is a problematic and stubborn person for him. Daria remembered that they say about this guy that even the fangs of a beast cannot penetrate his hard head, and these rumors turned out to be true. But he is spoken of as a brave warrior, whose works are admired by many masters. The wife is interested in why her husband came to this place for her? How did he find out about his wife's stay at Hehheart? Daria remembered. The emperor never cared about his wife. It is safe to say that he did not care about the girl throughout the marriage. But Alexander was silent. The husband did not want to answer his wife. He preferred to ask questions to which he wanted to know the answers, and he did not want to give answers to other people's questions. Now that Miss Adelaide was not with them, the key to the door was also not needed, and the husband gave it to his wife. Daria was surprised by this intention of the emperor. The coachman announced his arrival outside. That door had not been closed since the expulsion of the evil Miss Adelaide. Therefore, the key was no longer needed. The ruler got out of the carriage and offered his hand to his wife, but she hesitated. "What's wrong?" he asked. She went down. "No, nothing." They walked to the entrance, and Daria wondered what His Majesty was thinking about. And in the morning, Johann was happy about the arrival of the day when the crown festival begins. Today, they will be able to show everyone the young master Yuri. The colonel asks the guy to try to impress many people. Emma addressed the colonel, calling him by his last name, Carasini. She asked him to refrain from saying anything that might make Yuri nervous. The empress entered the room and was delighted with her son's clothes. The boy thanked her. He was worried. What if something went wrong at the festival? Daria asked him not to be sad, because everything would be fine. She heard how during training the boy accidentally hit Emma with a sword. She asked what her son thought after that. He admitted, it was a pity to injure the maid Emma. Mom asks the guy to look at the injured maid now, but the girl sparkled like a night star. Emma is happy. She is fine. Let the gentleman not worry. Nothing hurts and there is no bruise. The girl understands Yuri's feelings perfectly, but she also becomes sad when he is sad. Everyone has to endure failures, the Empress agrees. And then think about their consequences for a long time. It is also important to understand that life does not end with them. According to the mother, her son will have another chance to fix everything. Few people manage to do something perfectly the first time. It's okay to fail too, Daria assures. Her son will grow up and gain experience. She promises to help, no matter how hard it is for them. Yuri thanked his mother for her kind words. The Emperor entered and announced the need to go. The boy Tui became serious. He was ready. They were announced upon their appearance in the ceremonial hall. The guests in the hall were discussing the crown princes coming out into the society of aristocrats. They were looking forward to this event. The boy himself radiated an aura of confidence, and in this he resembled His Majesty the Emperor. People were a little disappointed by the heir's hair color, which was believed to be inherited from the ruler. Although with the right effort and clothes, the guy looks quite effective. Entering the hall, Yuri thanked everyone present for coming to this evening. He asks the guests to enjoy this significant event for everyone. When the royal family sat down on the chairs, people began to congratulate the guy. Daria saw that the birthday boy was a little nervous, but he was still fine. I am sure that many guests will personally see that he is worthy of carrying the future of the empire on his shoulders. When his mother asked him if he was okay, Yuri answered positively. The butler approached the emperor with a reminder of a certain warning. Alexander thanked him, stood up, and left. Duke Straggler and his son approached the throne. The aristocrat mockingly greeted the heir. Yuri thanked him reservedly. It was a great honor for the Duke to witness the boy's social debut. Looking at Neg, Straggler had memories of his son Lucas coming out into society for the first time, 2 years ago. Since then, the Duke himself has not changed, and look how big his son has grown. Lucas also apologized to the birthday boy with no less mocking apology. He says, his father brought him up to the need to succeed in various things from the age of 5. The Duke's son starts to laugh involuntarily, thinking how naive his father was. And also, a talented member of the royal family should seriously be able to fight with real swords at the age of 5. Yuri listened to all this without joy. His Highness the heir has already begun to train seriously, right? Asked Lucas. The Duke thinks the offspring has confused the prince a little. Straggler heard that Adelaida left the palace. Therefore, the aristocrat thought that the royal family had found a more suitable teacher, and he wants the royal parents to introduce this teacher to his son. Daria understands the guests' feelings. In her opinion, a teacher should be chosen taking into account the individual characteristics of the child. Translation of the Queen's words, Yuri's education is beyond Lucas's capabilities. Straggler smiles. She is right. Translation: what kind of education is this for a useless kid? The Duke took his leave. His family wishes the best to the Imperial family during the Crown Festival. Daria thanked the guest. They left. And Alexander safely handed the sword to his son, which the ruler appreciated. It was the lady's turn to hand her son the shield, but a frightened servant ran up. He reported the theft of the shield she had prepared for the child. The lady seemed to know that this would happen. Emma also stood in horror. I remembered a day from my past life. Before the festival, it was hard to find shields because Straggler had bought them. Before the presentation, the Empress learned about the theft of the shield she ordered for Yuri. Then Miss Adelaide called the lady over and, in her usual mocking manner, handed over the fake shield. Daria refused to give such a thing to her son. She understood that he would be laughed at as a prince not recognized by his mother. Daria has a replacement for this shield? Adelaida asked then. She believed that the girl's negligence had ruined the boy's future. After that incident, an even greater discord arose between mother and offspring. The culprit was not found in the end, and the fact of the theft before the ceremony was hidden. But now everything is different. Emma is going to go and find the shield, but the mistress asks not to worry, because everything is fine. The maid does not understand this. With a smile, Daria went to solve the problem. The maid and the Empress are perplexed. The guests in the hall are surprised, because the ruler does not bring anything to the prince. Does she really not recognize the crown prince? Yuri himself is almost shocked, but the mother asks her beloved offspring not to worry and to trust her. The castle doors opened and the man who entered asked for forgiveness. He had not worn formal clothes for a long time. He had gotten out of the habit of wearing them and was almost late. Daria happily announced that everyone had been waiting for the guest. She introduced the person who had arrived, the great hero of the Ilvarian Empire, Hayder Alois. The guests in the hall recognized this hero and key figure in the war between East and West. They do not understand why he came here. Hayder bowed and greeted the Empress and the heir. As a sign of loyalty, he gives the ruler a shield. Yuri's mouth dropped open in surprise. The Emperor gave the heir a sword, passed down between members of the August family from generation to generation. And the Empress will give the shield of glory from the hero. Hayder then left the palace. Daria is sure the shield will reliably protect the boy in the future. She wishes that his path ahead will be filled with only bright light. The mother passed the shield to her son, causing him joy. The artifacts given to the prince, imbued with ancient power, enveloped him in an aura of greatness worthy of the heir to the throne, the Duke thought. Even the hero of the country recognized the prince, so Ilvaria's future is bright. The aristocrat headed for the exit. He's home a bit early today. Did something really bother him? Asked the Emperor. Why does he think so? Answered Straggler. He's glad to see the prince's beautiful image. He said, in the future he will bear. And he thought, death. It is incredible that the Emperor's heir was honored by the country's hero himself. This fact itself caused the Duke, according to him, the greatest emotions. Alexander replied, Yuri is his son and direct heir, not from a side branch of the family that steals titles. What does he mean? The Duke smiled. He has to leave. He has things to do. He says that Lucas is going to stay until the end of the ball, so he asks the ruler to keep an eye on him. Then he turns around and leaves. The Emperor only looks at him sullenly. The Empress went out onto the balcony and was sure that Straggler had stolen the shield. They even examined the room where the gift was kept, but found no evidence. The villain is not one to let himself be caught easily, but the lady is glad that she was able to safely hand over the shield to her son, a disguised Yuri. The Empress appreciated his new beautiful suit. The outfit was brought by Emma, and he changed. In fact, the maid herself changed the guy's clothes. Regarding the ceremony, says Yuri, he thanks the Empress for the beautiful shield. No need, the mother replies. This is thanks to him for the good reception and the wonderful attitude of the offspring towards her. Yuri thought about something. To justify the shield given to him by his mother and Hayder, and to become a worthy heir, the boy is ready to do everything possible. Daria believes that he will succeed. She is sure. He will become a wonderful heir. The guy confessed. His soul warms after their conversations. He asks to confess. Is she a sorceress? The lady smiled. He saw through it. And for his hard work, she is ready to cast an encouraging spell. And in the yard, the flowers began to shine and bloom. Isn't it beautiful? And this enchanting power, like a warm fire, warms the soul. And since Yuri is the son of Daria, then magical blood flows in his veins. She asks the boy to remember, true magic is born in the heart when it is filled with happiness and joy. Inside the mother, too, there is warmth after each of their conversations. Daria suggested her son to return to the hall. The ball would soon begin. The boy felt shy but remembered his mother's previous words. He could say whatever he wanted. He said he wanted to give her the first dance. Yuri offered his hand to Her Highness the Empress. He asked, can he ask her to dance? Daria was embarrassed because her offspring had opened up to her about his feelings for the first time. She answered him with consent, and the boy was happy. The Empress needs to change first, so she asks to wait for her son. The boy was standing in the hall, but his mother was still not there. Suddenly, Lucas approached him. He was deliberately walking towards the boy. The Duke's son suggested that the heir go outside to chat. He had a few questions that only Yuri could answer. They headed for the exit, and the Emperor kept a close eye on the boys. When they were in the garden, Lucas asked, was the prince recognized by the hero of the empire? After all, Mr. Hayder, before retiring, openly announced to everyone his unwillingness to take students. Lucas shouted at this. Even earning his living as a blacksmith, Hayder only took on repairs and nothing more, said the Duke's son. And this time the hero sewed a shield for the crown prince with his own hands. So why did he recognize Yuri? The Emperor approached the palace column and stood behind it so that the boys would not notice him. Lucas scoffs. Everything is clear to him. If the heroes do not resist the authorities, then the prince's family put pressure on the hero. Yuri denied. Mr. Hehheart did it of his own free will. Lucas angrily asks the boy not to answer him. He believes that the hero should have acknowledged him, not his son Alexander. If it weren't for Yuri's existence, the recognition, the shield, and the imperial throne would have been the Duke's son, he is sure. It would have been better if the prince had never been born, shouts an angry Lucas. Yuri looked sadly at his opponent. The prince called Lucas stronger, taller, and more advanced in his studies than the heir. Aunt Adelaide thought so too. And he remembered Miss Slomi when she praised the Duke's son and criticized the prince. The boy was afraid of being compared to Lucas, and now his arm doesn't hurt at all after the Duke's son dragged him here. Wanted to complain? Asked Lucas. Yuri means that now he spends more energy on training, and yet the heir considers the enemy amazing. He was surprised but shouted, demanding not to tell him such a thing. Reminded the guy. He is from an imperial family. Stop apologizing so easily to everyone. If Lucas can get permission from the prince's father, he would like to watch the heir's fencing training. After that, he turned around and left. And the emperor approached his son. He regrets that he left without his permission. Alexander silently ruffled his offspring's hair and asked him to come back, because the ball was soon. The boy thought that his mother was already in the hall. His father did not understand, but he explained. He invited her to dance and waited for her to change. He decided to go after her and ask if everything was okay with the lady. The emperor asks Yuri to return, and he himself will go to Daria. After all, the main character must be present at his event. Daria put on the dress, but all that was left was to fasten it at the back. It was a pity that there were no servants nearby at such moments. Emma seemed busy. He was helping the prince. Or maybe there was a free maid nearby, but the ruler suddenly entered the room. The spouses looked at each other in surprise. They began to apologize to each other for the embarrassment they had caused. The ruler reminded them about his son. He was worried that his mother was not coming out. The girl promised to go out as soon as she changed her clothes. The emperor would tell the boy so. He had already gone out when Daria asked her husband to button up the buttons on her back. He was forced to go back and fulfill the request. "Doesn't the wife have a personal servant?" asked the husband. He is always on expedition trips, so he doesn't know. But Daria hasn't hired personal servants since their marriage. "But she is an empress," said Alexander. "Therefore, it will be fine if Daria takes several people on as servants. His Majesty really doesn't understand anything?" The lady was surprised. She thanked her husband for his help and went into the hall. Daria was shocked. How many days had passed since their wedding, and he had only noticed the absence of his wife's servants today. Being from the baronial class, the girl had no authority to express an opinion in imperial circles, but it was clearly in vain that she refused the servants. After all, the emperor said that it was his wife's full right. And at the ball, Daria met a joyful Yuri. Mother apologized for her long absence. The joy of the meeting caught the ruler's eye. He is nervous. The empress thought about her son. The boy is glad of his mother's support, so today he will be the leader in the dance. And they spun around in front of the guests. Yuri was small, but became reliable. Although because of this, some part of the empress feels lonely, and her son's growth is like a young tree reaching for the sun, and she waits with trepidation for his fruits. Daria promised Yuri to repeat their dance someday. The ruler praised her son for a good dance. Has he already managed to practice? Yes. The boy really wanted to thank his mother for the party on the occasion of his birthday. That's why he asked Emma to teach him the moves. Daria thanked her son, and she will remember this memory for the rest of her life. "And what about the award for the Corona Festival?" asked the mother, and suggested going to the flower garden tomorrow. He happily agreed. She asked, "Has he forgotten what they promised each other?" The mother is sure that he will never forget, because it is a promise between mother and son. In the evening, Daria looked into Yuri's room. In his dream, he wanted to dance with Lulu too. The empress looked at her son with affection. He tried hard today. She leaves everything else to Emma. She bowed in response. Now the ruler can rest. Tomorrow they will go to the flower garden. His Majesty came up to her. The girl bowed to her husband and thanked him for the hard work he had done today. Daria talks about returning to the palace and asks her husband to have a good rest. She was just thinking about leaving, but Alexander grabbed her hand and asked, "Has she ever experienced something like this?" The girl reminded about the end of the eventful Corona festival. And tomorrow the emperor is leaving for another expedition, so it would be better for him to go to bed right now. But the ruler asked not to change the subject. According to him, his wife knows what he is talking about. Daria immediately remembered Duke Straggler and Miss Adelaida. "Not true. What is the husband talking about?" The lady answered. For her, this day was like her husband's, the first time. Alexander asked, "Where is the pendant he gave her?" "It is the first gift from a husband to his wife. If other aristocrats see the decoration, they will understand that the decoration is from the emperor." And this served as a deterrent. Daria admitted to selling the pendant. She apologized for selling the jewelry that was not bought with her money. But here the lady feels like a real stranger without her own property and money. Daria hopes the emperor is not against this, as well as the girl's use of the money at her own discretion. Alexander is interested in his wife's plans for tomorrow. She told him about going to the flower garden with her son. Alexander turned around and left, asking for forgiveness for the delay. And the empress stood and did not understand what just happened, looking after him. In the morning, Yuri happily ran around a beautiful playground with flowers. He told his mother that it was much more beautiful than anything he had previously imagined after looking at pictures in books. Daria and Emma asked the boy not to run too far. The lady is glad that the boy is having such a good time, even with the emperor himself here. What is he doing here? Daria reminded about today's expedition of the monarch. His answer, just dropped by on the way. And Yuri approached his mother and gave her a bouquet of flowers. The lady thanked the boy with joy. But that's not all. The heir wants to show a little magic. There were golden petals on his hands. Yuri threw them into the air and wished for his mother to feel warm inside. So he tried to recreate the landscape they saw yesterday. What wonderful magic. The empress praised her son. She thanks him because her soul really did become warmer. And Lulu suddenly approached Alexander and began to bark. He bent his hand towards her, which frightened Yuri. The boy ran up and picked up the puppy. He asked to wait a bit. Then he turned around and ran. Alexander held a flower in his hands and looked at his son. Then he asked his wife, "What is the essence of her magic?" Daria compared the warmth inside from good emotions with magic in the hope that their offspring would smile more often. She looked at the sky. She had not looked at such a wide and beautiful sky for a long time. This is the first time they have gone somewhere together. A lot has changed since then. How Daria opened the unopenable door. She wonders if she will ever see Yuri's sad and angry face again. She surpassed him. The husband told his wife. He took out the box and opened it. There was a ring. Alexander asks to accept this from him. The girl was very surprised. This is the angel ruby. The right to extract this rare ore, which can be found in the most remote corners of the northern mines, belongs to the Imperial family. This rock is used to make jewelry, and those are the symbol of the August House and are almost never found on the market. For Daria, this is a rare thing. According to the emperor, he ordered the ring to be brought from the north. But the lady of her husband did not ask about this. Alexander says, "This ruby is a symbol that carries a deep meaning, obvious to everyone who sees it. Even aristocrats cannot fail to realize the value and significance of the decoration. Daria can't accept him, even more. It's too much for the girl because she comes from a baronial family. The husband reminded her, she is an empress. Again, he didn't understand anything. Thought the ruler. The monarch did not rule out another sale on her part, but this time, the angel's ruby. But in any case, the wife is free to do whatever she wants with it. Daria thanked her husband for the gift, and the ruler's servant was already rushing towards them and declaring his readiness for the trip. Alexander bowed and left. The girl looked at the ruby. In her past life, she stubbornly held on to the gift that was the only one she had. It was that chain ornament with blue stones. Maybe I should sell the ruby too? Daria thought, but it was an ordinary trinket and nothing more. The Empress called Emma and asked her to take the gift to the room so that the lady would not lose it. Daria looked at the clearing and Yuri was not there. And he went further and picked flowers. He did not notice how the puppy ran up to him and barked happily. The boy took Lulu, began to pet and asked not to scare him like that again. Asks the dog not to tease his father too much in the future. He became curious about how much the prince liked the bouquet that his mother had given him. He picked up the red flower. It was the ruler's favorite color. Yuri didn't even notice how he found himself near a pond with beautifully shaded water. The heir decided to visit here again sometime. Daria walked across the field and looked for her son until she saw him and the puppy in the river. Without even seeing his mother, Yuri called the puppy to come with him. It was time for them to go back. But a gust of wind tore the flowers out of the boy's hands. He would have fallen into the water, but his mother came to the rescue and grabbed the prince's hand in time. But the next movement, and Daria fell into the water, flying into the depths. It is hard for her to float to the surface because of her dress, and it is already impossible to breathe. Only hope that everything is okay with Yuri. But someone has already dived after her. At home, Duke Straggler asked his son to repeat, and he said that he would like to watch the Crown Prince practice fencing one day. He realizes how poorly his opponent trains, so he wants to be there in person. The goal of the Duke's offspring is to laugh at the prince. It's an obvious lie for the boy's father, but he gave his permission. He asks Lucas to imagine how he could grow up if he closely watched Yuri. This will be a push for new achievements for the boy. The Duke himself believes that this experience will change him greatly. Lucas thanked his parent and left. And the Duke laughed evilly, rejoicing in his evil plan. He asked Lucas to befriend the Crown Prince and then stab him in the back. When Yuri weakens, Straggler Jr. will easily overthrow him and take his place on the throne. After all, the guy wanted this for so long. Daria felt as if her son was calling her. She saw him and the Emperor standing opposite each other with naked swords, and the lady saw herself from the side. Now she was hovering in the castle like a ghost. Yuri asked his mother to look at him carefully, but she did not understand. Did she really come back? Or was it a dream? Yuri presented his father with his unwillingness to acknowledge his offspring until the very end, so the prince is ready to do everything his way. And they fought with swords. Experience did not help Alexander, and soon Yuri pierced him with his weapon. For the Empress, this was a familiar scene, and it was clearly from her past. The son's sword began to shine. Something had happened to it, Daria noted. The ruler's hands had also changed. With his last strength, Alexander asked his wife to run. Daria opened her eyes and saw her husband with his son, Emma, and the old butler. She was on the bed in her bedroom. The lady did not understand what had happened. Memories of how she was killed, but Yuri hugged his mother and sobbed pitifully. It was all because of him, asking for forgiveness. The mother calms the unfortunate child. Everything is fine with her. The Emperor ordered to call a doctor. The butler accepted the command and went out. The husband asked the Empress how she was feeling now. The answer, good. No ailments. She did not remember His Majesty addressing his wife by name either in the past or in this life, but when the girl's name was heard, it was not a memory, but rather a dream. Daria did not understand why she could not remember it for so long. Was it forgetfulness or deliberate oblivion? Was she too preoccupied with what was happening in front of her? But now that she had realized it, it didn't matter anymore. At the moment of her murder, Daria clearly saw the reflection of a man's silhouette in her son's sword. Could that person really be Lucas? Since he was trying to take the imperial throne with all his might, he was Yuri's political enemy. But why did Daria seem to be friends with him? The son looked at his mother and asked, "Is she feeling unwell?" No. As soon as she saw the boy, she immediately came to her senses. The Emperor, who was watching this, stood up and announced that he was returning to the expedition. They looked at him in surprise. Before leaving, His Majesty went into the flower garden again and witnessed his wife fall into the water. He jumped into the pond and saved her. If it were not for his help, Daria would have definitely drowned. Now she apologizes for the inconvenience. Also, a huge thank you to the husband from his wife. He, leaving, asks the lady to rest better while he is not home. Daria was surprised. His Majesty was now taking care of her? She does not believe it. It cannot be true. Can a man who has ignored his wife for 15 years change so easily? Daria took the box with the ring. Should I put it in a secluded place? Asked Emma. Yes, please, answered the lady. The husband even gave the Empress a ring. She cannot deny the changes in her husband's character that have occurred in recent days. His words when he asked her to run away, calling his wife by name. I still couldn't believe that these were his last words. Was it just my imagination or not? Daria was pulled out of her thoughts by her son. What was wrong with him? Yuri started crying and pointed at the girl's hands. So cold. The ruler hugged the boy with a smile. Now he will definitely warm her up, she tells him. Yuri asks for forgiveness because it was because of him that his mother fell into the water. Everything is fine. The boy just wanted to pick lilies for a bouquet. The mother reassured him, but it is also dangerous to be near water. Even people who can swim can drown, warned Daria. She allowed her son to continue to collect bouquets, but not alone as before. There is no need to expose yourself to danger. The Empress gently hugged the heir. And if he wants to frolic by the pond, always let him take one of the adults with him. The boy obeyed and received praise from his mother. He understood that he had to become a great crown prince for her sake. But then Yuri could only watch his father save his mother. But in reality, he should have pulled her out of the water. The boy got out of bed and stood there guiltily, which surprised the Empress. Suddenly, Lucas entered the room. The servant was unable to stop the villain. In the room, he apologized for the intrusion and called Yuri a loser. The heir asked the guest, "What is he doing here?" He seemed surprised. Yuri had forgotten about the words spoken by the Duke's son. After all, he had recently promised to teach the prince fencing. How could the boy forget about this? The ruler smiled sweetly. Straggler Jr. was surprised again and attacked the servant. Why didn't he tell him that Her Highness the Empress was also in the room? Daria did not understand. Why did Lucas appear here now? He wants to make peace with Yuri? But earlier he hated the heir. The Duke's son bowed and greeted Her Majesty the Empress. The boy apologized deeply for interrupting the conversation between mother and son. He thought the Empress was not looking well. He apologized again for his own inattention. Now the guest's behavior was very different from the actions he had demonstrated last time. Yuri turned to his mother and wanted to tell her about the conversation between him and the Duke's son at the festival, but he didn't have time. But Lucas interrupted him. Yes, they had a conversation with the prince about fencing. The guys decided to train together. This desire is dictated by the intention to mutually motivate each other and achieve goals faster. Yuri confirmed the guest's words. He asked his mother for permission to train with Lucas. The guy made a very touched face. It's not fair to ask for something like that, the Empress thought. Daria did not refuse her son. Soon their training began. She gave her consent, but with one condition: to be present at their classes. After all, Lucas is the son of the Duke, who is in the mistress's dream. For now, she decided to just watch. During the training, Lucas knocked Yuri's wooden sword away and he fell. Straggler Jr. started apologizing. Does it hurt? He asked his sparring partner. There seemed to be no scratches. The mother and son looked at the guest in surprise. Lucas gave his hand to the heir and he rose to his feet. The Empress was pleased. The relationship between the boys had returned to normal. She had judged the boy by his origin and past, not seeing his true personality. But now Lucas's look and behavior are very different. Daria realized that she had to act to prevent the future she saw in her dream. With such skills and speed, the prince will never win the Holy Sword tournament. Emma came and brought tea. According to her, the heir will take part in the competition this year. The reason why the Ilval Empire is considered such is because of its unique military power. It is because of this that the country is considered the strongest on the continent. And once a year, a ceremony is held to dedicate the power to the goddess of victory. If Yuri is going to the tournament, then the Duke's son should be there. The Empress is sure. For the sake of her own son, a mother should look after him. If the prince trains with Straggler Jr., he may not lose right away. The former believes. Yuri doesn't mind because last year it was his current opponent who won the championship. Lucas asks not to praise him. He was then in the Night Children group. But still, This year, the guest will dedicate the victory to his mother, so she will become the most honorable woman in the empire. And then the tournament. The judge named the winner. It's Alexander Klaus Ilvaria. The winnings from the ceremony are presented as a gift to a close woman who is equated with the goddess. The spectators were already bragging that they had seen the empress herself in the box at the stadium. They thought that the victory should be dedicated to her, because the previous ruler had done the same. The judge asked Alexander to whom he was dedicating the victory. The unexpected answer: the country. The public was almost shocked. Daria had been in despair since the day of separation from her son. It seemed that she had reached the limit of her suffering. But a new event dealt the unfortunate woman a more painful blow. The lady will have to hear him dedicate his championship victory to his country and not his wife again? The emperor would be shocked if he knew what his wife thought of him when they were apart. And in the camp, Johann reported to the ruler about the completion of the deployment of troops. He apologized because he made the emperor wait. The colonel had already heard about the illness of the empress. "Nonsense," answered Alexander. "He saw her in the morning." "Oh, that's how it is." Johann was surprised. He hoped to see the girl in good health soon. The emperor wanted to finish what he had started soon. They walked across the parade ground toward the troops. The boys continued training, and the empress watched them. She thinks His Majesty will decide to dedicate the victory to his country this time too. When I know what will happen next, the scales are somehow calmer. Now it's a completely different matter. The empress rose from her chair and suggested that the boys take a break. Emma brought a basket with cake and pastries. Dari YA recommends that the boys eat something tasty and then train well for the Holy Sword tournament. Yuri is cheerful and agreeable. He is ready to eat well and then have a great workout. Lucas continues to assure that the prince will most likely lose to him. Daria could watch her son grow with both eyes. A week later, the emperor and Johann were in the office. According to the colonel, everyone was very happy about His Majesty's return home. Many knights were happy to see their family sooner, and Alexander could also rest a little. Although under the current circumstances, it is impossible. The ruler asked, "How is the empress feeling?" The answer is good, but the doctor recommends as much rest as possible. It seems that her previous appetite has not returned, but at least she has started trying to eat normally. They say that Dari YA spends all her time training with her son. Soon, his first Holy Sword tournament will be, well, what can I say? True motherly love. The ruler wonders where the empress is now. Johann is sure she must be in the training hall. Alexander decided to go talk to her for a bit. Johann asked what to do with the pile of documents. The emperor decided to leave it all to him. The colonel was not upset. With a smile, he calmed the ruler and asked him to rely on the warrior. After a while, the emperor and empress were having breakfast on the summer terrace. Alexander had suddenly approached his wife with such a frightening look that she was taken aback. And with such an expression on his face, he offered to talk. He asks his wife if she doesn't like sweets. "Actually, she does," she answers. The next question is, what about her appetite? The empress just had lunch recently. Did His Majesty prepare this especially for his wife? She thought. She had already eaten her fill, but it would be wrong not to touch it. Daria began to try the dish, and her husband looked at her. He was interested in Yuri's affairs. Was everything okay with him? According to the ruler, her son is training hard for the first Holy Sword tournament. Will His Majesty take part in the competition? Asked the wife. After the rescue at the lake, she was not left with a slight sadness. Daria promised to cheer for her husband. Then suddenly he looked at her sullenly. The girl does not understand what is going on. It turns out that she does not have to attend the Holy Sword tournament. Why? The empress said discontentedly. Alexander referred to the doctor's words. The wife needs to observe a rest regime. There are no problems with this, the spouse answered. Thanks to the emperor's care, she almost completely recovered. It is not right for a ruler. Without a good reason, he cannot give her his consent. That day, when Alexander pulled his wife out of the water, she was not breathing at all. Breathing in such a situation is impossible to quickly restore. I see. Daria was amazed. She was very sorry for the inconvenience caused. Yuri does not know about this? She asked. No, answered the husband. The girl was happy. It's good. She doesn't want to see her son upset, so she thanks her husband for saving her. She doesn't care about her own condition at all. The ruler thought, Daria understands that her husband can cause a lot of trouble, but she will strictly follow all the doctor's recommendations until the ceremony. They ask her to let her go to the tournament. She wants to see with her own eyes how hard Yuri tries at the competition. According to Alexander, the wife changed by force. I wonder since when? Since that day? Daria remembered that this topic had already been touched upon. As a result, it turned out that she no longer had to fulfill the demands that her husband put forward. He finally agreed. If his wife did everything that was required of her now, she would be able to decide for herself whether to go to the Holy Sword competition or not. But her husband had one condition. If the Emperor wins the tournament, his wife must follow him somewhere for a day. Why would that be? She wonders. This is about when she said that the ruler supposedly doesn't understand anything at all. The day of the Holy Sword tournament had arrived. Daria wondered how her husband could remember what she had told him at the Crown Festival. Spectators were already appearing at the stadium, and the participants were entering the arena. The Empress thought it would be good if her husband won this time. The competition is held in two types: fencing and horse riding. His Majesty will participate in horse riding, and Yuri in fencing. Spectators in the stands were discussing the restrictions on travel that would last until nightfall in the castle town. This must have been done in view of the upcoming festival. Well, what can you do? Daria asked her son, how does he like the idea of the festival? She suggested that he drop by if he has the opportunity. The boy agreed. The announcer has already apologized for the delay. The first horse riding competition has begun. Johann is heading to the start from the western gate. Carosini, representing the Imperial Army. The little spectators greeted him and promised to root for the boy. Yuri loudly wishes his favorite good luck. The first race began. Johann was upset because now he would not be able to look at his nephew with his eyes. The Empress reassured him. The warrior was simply unlucky to be placed with the king in the first race. In subsequent duels, His Majesty confidently won, demonstrating outstanding fencing skills and securing his place in the final. Soon his time came. Yuri looked at the ruler and admired him. How strong he was. The boy wanted to follow his example. Daria asked her offspring, is this the first time he sees with his own eyes how the Emperor fights? The judge announced the final. His Majesty will most likely win this time too. The Empress recently said that she would root for him, but when she thinks about what will happen after his victory, she doesn't want to root for her husband at all. Doris will be at the start from the western gate. Friedrich, representing the knightly order of the County of Raymond. Daria looked at this man and was horrified. Something was wrong with him. Duke Straggler, who was present in the stands, smiled evilly. The same smile Doris Friedrich. The finale has officially begun, and the Emperor rushes at his opponent. The loud screeching of swords striking each other. The ruler feels as if the knight is running away from him. The next moment, the reins on the Emperor's horse broke. His family and all the spectators were horrified. The judge shouted to stop the duel. Doris wanted to strike the ruler, but the latter's sleight of hand, the blow and the knight is already lying in the arena. Everyone is amazed. What did he just do? His Majesty threw his opponent off his horse. The judge immediately declared Emperor Klaus the winner Alexander. Johann is amazed because the commander could have received a serious injury, although he expected nothing less from him. Daria is glad that everything ended well. Why did everything go wrong when she thought about the worst-case scenario? Do her fears attract trouble? The judge in the arena asked His Majesty to whom he would dedicate his victory. The spectators thought it right to dedicate it to the Empress. The previous ruler had done just that. Daria watched what was happening. What had happened in her past was now repeating itself. The girl thought she was prepared for this, but the shock of the previous dedication of victory to the country was too great. Okay, she will try to survive this somehow. She wants to watch Yuri fight too much. And then the ruler suddenly looked towards his family, who were sitting on the platform. And he dedicated his victory to Her Majesty the Empress. Daria can't judge how the Emperor has changed, but she can say for sure. Right now, she is the only one in his field of vision. And if the lady hadn't agreed, then that the mission was over, and firmly declared that she could be Yuri's mother. Perhaps, her past would have developed completely differently. The Empress believes that her husband would have been more sincerely happy. The knight approached Yuri and said that it was time for him to come out. The boy was definitely ready to dedicate himself to his own mother. He was going to make her the goddess of victory. Soon the boy was already in the yellow circle of the arena. Daria's wife congratulated him on his victory. He showed outstanding skills. Alexander simply could not afford to lose. According to his wife, he showed himself to be a true emperor. But the Count's knight showed dishonest groups in the duel with the emperor. This must be investigated. Not only the ruler, but also many viewers believe that all this was done on purpose. Alexander absolutely agrees with this. Johann leaned towards the ruler and started whispering something in his ear. Daria didn't understand. Was it really so much that he wanted to win? Were there any reasons to cheat deliberately? The referee announced the start of the first game of the Youth League. The girl is worried about the Count and his knight, but Yuri is in first place for her. As His Majesty, the boy is making good progress. But it's time for the final. Yuri and Lucas entered the ring. The Empress knew that in a past life, her son lost to an opponent. At the time, Daria was so focused on herself that she couldn't understand how upset Yuri was, so she didn't praise him for his efforts. But now she can do both. Unexpectedly for many, the Empress rose to her feet and loudly greeted her son. Let the looks bore a hole in her. Let her face burn, but the ruler did not care. She asked her son to try hard in the duel. Yuri and Johann were no less loudly rooting for Mr. The Emperor was looking at his son intently. The crowned mother, however, was very nervous, and the fight had already begun. The boys, armed with wooden swords, began to fight. The prince struck, but Lucas parried it. "Have you caught the courage, weakling?" asked the duke's son. The heir answered, "Yes, because he is supported. In order to become a worthy heir, Yuri must protect his mother. He must defeat Lucas right now. If he cannot give victory to his mother..." But at that moment, the duke's son knocked the sword out of his opponent's hands with a deft blow. Yuri's sword sank into the sand. The boy himself sat sadly on the arena floor. Lucas got worried and approached his opponent. "How is he?" he asks. The judge declared Duke Straggler Jr. the winner. Yuri bowed to his opponent and thanked him for the duel. Daria looked at the boy with a sad look. Lucas looked at the spectators, seeing his father among them. He looked at his offspring with some kind of evil alien look. A servant came up to the emperor and announced that it was time for them to go. He left, and Daria was left alone. She waits because he should be back very soon. She wants to praise her son for his efforts and hug him tightly. Not to be upset, but to learn a lesson from the defeat. But the boy was late and the mother became worried. Perhaps something had happened. When she headed down to the participants' waiting rooms, the knight asked where the Empress was going. She explained that she was going to look for the prince. She thought Yuri couldn't escape from here. He was most likely here in the hall. She entered the room and really saw her son here. The boy was sitting on the floor with his face buried in his knees, but he saw his mother and looked at her bitterly. Before his mother came, the boy was thinking about her. She literally showered him with gifts recently. Gave him a puppy Lulu, precious treasures, a penguin. He received so many warm emotions. And what did he give her in return? Yuri was grieving. All he could do was give his mother flowers, and he couldn't protect her. He couldn't bring her victory now, no matter how much he wanted to. The boy remembered how Miss Adelaide had yelled at him. Her words that he had supposedly gone completely mad. After all, he was being groomed to become the heir. And what had the guy achieved? A slacker, good only for sitting on the neck of the state. Auntie then even threatened to throw him out if he continued to do nothing. Yuri believes that he is not capable of anything. He asked himself, what is the meaning of his existence? The poor thing began to cry bitterly. Then his mother came in, but Yuri did not want his mother to see him in such a state. Turning to her, the unfortunate man asks for forgiveness because he lost. But unexpectedly, his mother hugged her son with all her love. The prince was shocked that this was happening. His mother continued to shower him with her support. He was sure she was worried because the boy had not returned for too long. Daria thanked her offspring for his hard work. He had done well today. Daria noticed how her son was hurt. The future was in a nervous state. The unfortunate child did not notice the bleeding. The girl considers it necessary to take her son to the doctor, but he does not want it. She picked him up and carried him. Yuri is against it because his mother will stain her clothes with blood. No, everything is fine, she reassured. The son invited to assure that he would come himself. The Empress pities the child because he gave it his all during the duel. All she could do was root for him. That's why she really wants to take care of him now. Is he really that uncomfortable with her company? In fact, the mother doesn't think the boy has lost. The girl is still incredibly proud of him. The Empress thanked her offspring for showing his mother such a stunning duel. Even if he was the last loser, thought Yuri, then his mother would never turn away and abandon him. When they left the doctor, the Empress announced the end of the Holy Sword competition. She thought it wouldn't hurt for them to change their clothes. But Yuri has to go to training now, so he doesn't want to change his outfit. Daria is upset. She had so hoped that her son would not leave her alone at the festival. But Yuri suddenly changed his mind, and he is already going with her. The Empress immediately rejoiced because she was so lonely to be alone. Lucas to come along with them? He thought the more people, the merrier. Besides, the boy hadn't congratulated his opponent on his victory yet. The lady agreed. And in the garden near the arena, Emperor Alexander held a poisonous plant in his hands. Johann stood nearby. The specimen found was not a local species, says the colonel. It was brought here from somewhere, and that is quite obvious. Did the criminals manage to plant the plants? The ruler asks. Johann answers that no, the plants did not take root, fortunately. The knights believe that someone is plotting to kill His Majesty. Alexander doesn't think so because the poison in the plant only paralyzes for a few days, but does not kill. What is the bandit's true goal? Parzrania, Duke Straggler asked his son to drink poison with the crown prince. He doesn't understand why. The aristocrat sent a dumb knight to the arena who couldn't kill the emperor. The villain wanted to get there before the ruler could intervene. Lucas was surprised. So that incident was caused by his father? Is he surprised? Asks the Duke. Bringing the boy closer to the prince was the right decision. If the former dies now, people will start gossiping. They will say that the failed heir, embittered by his loss at the Holy Sword tournament, decided to eliminate the heir to the ducal family. The villain gave his son an ampule and said that the poison would not cause him long-term pain. Straggler sees the good of their kind as his goal, so the boy's death is just a means to achieve it. After giving the ampule, he turned around and left. Lucas was left alone in the arena. Suddenly, the Duke's son was called by the prince, who was next to his mother. Straggler Jr. squeezed the ampule in his hands and turned around. Yuri cheerfully waved his hand at him. The heir ran up to his recent opponent. So that's where he is. What's wrong? Lucas asked repulsively. Yuri was a little embarrassed, but said that he wanted to congratulate him on his victory. Why is he saying this? The Duke's son asked. Simple, Yuri answered. I see, well, that's enough, Lucas tells him. If the guy doesn't mind, then he can go with the heir and his mother to the festival. Straggler Jr. was a little surprised by this proposal. The prince needs help with a document. He wants to check if the Empress really doesn't care about him becoming a good crown prince. Lucas doesn't understand why the guy would do this. Lucas remembered his father's words about the need to drink poison. Reluctantly, he agreed to go to the festival. The prince was very happy about this and thanked the boy. He ran to his mother, and the Duke's son silently watched him go. Lucas threw the ampule of poison into the grass. Now he doesn't know what to tell his father. That he got rid of the poison when he was on the verge of being exposed? He didn't want to take such measures. Finally, they all came to the festival. Daria apologizes to the emperor for distracting her from state affairs. Everything is fine, he replied here. Johann reported that inspecting the city's security systems was already one of their top priorities. Lucas turned to Yuri and asked what was first on their list. Try begging. The prince had already seen how the boys behaved at the festival, so he would follow their example. Then the heir approached his mother and pointed in a plaintive tone at the bear-shaped candies on a stick. He wanted to try them. Okay, but which one did he choose? Asks the Empress. The son was confused. He didn't know. Lucas suddenly offered to buy them all. Yuri answered in the same tone. He wants to eat all the candies. Daria smiled and bought for the guys what they wanted. The Duke's son is surprised. They succeeded. The next item on the list is to start running away. But the children came into the Emperor's sights and he grabbed them by the collar. The operation had to be canceled. The next round is to stop using the respectful manner of communication. The Empress, meanwhile, was admiring the beautiful horses at the festival. "Wow, really?" Yuri exclaimed. Lucas asks him not to pretend he was talking to himself. As they walked down the street, someone greeted them from the windows and called them family. Someone asked if they were having fun today. Yuri sadly answered that he was, but the next second he smiled. It was really cool here. The boys walked across the square and rejoiced. Things are going well for them so far. The Empress does not swear at all. Lucas is not surprised because she is Yuri's mother. According to the Duke's son, there is no greater happiness for parents than to see their children smile. The prince became a little sad. He wondered, is this true even if he behaves inappropriately? Isn't it enough that the ruler is happy? Lucas pointed out. He asked to pay attention to her smile. Daria very sweetly. Nothing, answered the son. The heir would like to go to the puppet show that the seller told about, said the Duke's son. But he is afraid to say, because how soon will they return? The Empress agreed to go. She wanted to propose herself. And the show featured two dolls who played the role of brothers. According to the script, they joined forces and did the impossible. They defeated the terrible dragon and returned peace and tranquility to the city, and then lived happily ever after. Yuri watched the performance and clapped his hands with joy. Daria was worried about the Holy Sword tournament, but is glad that the boy is feeling better now. Aren't the brothers just in the way? Asks Lucas. If he had gone to kill the dragon alone, he would have acted much more freely. And what about the sister? Surely she would be a nice companion. Interrupted the conversation Johann. New operation. Yuri asks his mother if he can ask for a younger brother or sister. Both parents immediately looked at their son intently. The Empress is surprised when he learned to ask such provocative questions. Yuri wonders, will it be difficult for them to do this for him? The father pointed to a couple walking below. The ruler began to talk about men and women when Johann suddenly intervened. Doesn't His Majesty think that it is too early to tell Mr. Yuri about such things? Asks the colonel. According to the Emperor, there is nothing like that, because he already received sex education at about that age. The ruler is the ruler, and Yuri is Yuri. Times are not the same anymore, says the knight. The boy was at a loss. What did he say that was so bad? His mother tries to calm him down. Everything is fine. Everything is not like that at all. The explanation will be very difficult, Johann believes. But to put it simply, if a man and a woman hold hands and get along well, then they have a child. Daria is forced to confirm. That's exactly it. But she smiles. Evening came. The guys were standing on the parade ground. Lucas asked his comrade, was the operation successful? Could it really work out just because they were holding hands? Surprised Yuri, and the prince thanked his comrade. He didn't understand. Was he starting again? The heir explained that he couldn't have handled all this alone. And Lucas really is amazing. The Duke's son thinks the prince is cute. Lucas pointed out one point. He wondered if the prince would ask about it. The boy thought, next time it would be better to ask. Mom, probably. The answer to any question and forgive everything. But now it is scary to ask about it. Sometimes it happens that the moment is not the best. Lucas agrees. Yuri will definitely tell his friend what his mother told him at the next meeting. The Empress watched the boys from the side. She already imagined how one angel played with another little angel, but Daria was terrified of the thought of sharing a bed with His Majesty again. It seemed unattainable. Her husband came up and announced they were leaving soon. His wife would call their son now. Daria suddenly remembered something and called her husband. She remembers the promise they talked about at the table. Then Alexander asked to spend the Empress with him for one day in case of victory in the Holy Sword tournament, but she asked him to wait a little longer because the lady needs to do something. Is it connected with the Emperor's invitation to the festival? He asks. Exactly, said the wife. Lucas threw something away with a thoughtful expression on his face. After that, he didn't seem to be going to harm Yuri. The Empress suspected that the Duke had given him this item and that there was some evil intent behind it, So, just in case, the wife invited His Majesty to accompany the family to the festival. But the ruler will not dare to tell Lucas that it was she who picked up the bottle. The main thing now is to carefully study all this and find at least some clue. Otherwise, it is unclear what else could happen. Alexander is not against postponing the promise if he can get one day of his wife. Everything is fine. She was surprised, but thanked her husband. A joyful man ran up to them. Yuri. He thanked his mother for waiting. The boy said goodbye to Lucas and they left. The next day, the Empress went to the pharmacist. He examined the contents of the bottle and identified it as little talus. It is a poisonous plant that does not grow in these parts. The knight who cut His Majesty's reins during the tournament was most likely sent by the Duke. The Empress believes that all of this is connected, but using his son to poison Yuri is simply monstrous. Daria read the letter. She remembered her son. He was fine. His mother would protect him. Right now, the lady would take the step that would help her get rid of the Duke. Johann and the Imperial couple stood on the balcony of the house. The Duke's son was poisoned? The question was asked. Yes, the Empress answered. The herb that the ruler found was also little talus. If the poison growing in the county and the poison that Lucas had are the same composition, then the Count and Straggler have united. The Emperor wants irrefutable evidence. Of course they can't blab, says Daria. The ruler can force them to give evidence. Alexander and Johann were very surprised by this decision. While they were in the room, Daria poured out a plan to them. Johann, in the guise of a merchant, would visit the Count's house and sell him a bottle. The Empress would first sprinkle it with little talus pollen. The pollen will only turn your hand red at worst. She asks the knight to make the Count touch the bottle in any way. After touching it, a reaction will occur. Johann must apologize and say that the contents of the bottle were accidentally spilled, and then the poisonous bottle should be shown. Johann understood because the Count, knowing about the contents, would definitely blab. The poor knight himself accidentally touched the bottle. The Empress asks everyone to forgive her. The meeting ended, and soon she was sitting on the balcony at a set table waiting for her husband. How is Johann? She asked him. The dose is small and it will pass overnight, he answered. The girl thinks that the knight is sometimes absent-minded. She wonders why the ruler made him his main assistant. Johann is inexperienced, but when he was in the army, he did not try to kill the king. Daria looked at Alexander, and suddenly all the questions she had for him simply disappeared. She remembered that the knight's birthday was coming soon and suggested giving him paper and ink so that he could write down something important. The Emperor canceled, then he will make him his secretary, and his wife will become the main assistant. Daria smiles. In this case, she is ready to serve faithfully and truly. She suggested sending Johann to study at Hehheart. The Emperor is not against. Let him live there for 3 years. Daria asked her husband with a smile. Is that enough? He also answered sweetly, quite enough. The evening was going wonderfully for the couple. In the morning, all of yours were with the Count. This poison and the incident with the holy sword he did not plan. It was the Duke. He gave the Count an order. The Emperor demanded proof. The suspect shouted, Of course they have it. The trio went outside with a piece of paper. It contained the Duke's order with his signature. The proof was irrefutable. The gentlemen were delighted. The Empress's plan had worked successfully. Daria turned around and saw the locals. A little girl was screaming, Yesterday's girl is here. She became a favorite of the people, Johann noted. Daria was talking to people at that time. The Emperor became worried and asked the knight, When he came here, how many guards did he see at the gate? 3, but, answered the knight. The ruler is horrified. One probably was presented to the Duke. He ordered his subordinate to prepare immediately. Perhaps they have already been given to Straggler, to Daria, and apologized. He said that someone was looking for her. He received a letter in the territory of Duke Straggler. The author wrote that in the county there should be a blonde girl and a man with black hair and red eyes. The stranger asked to give them this letter, and handed the envelope to the Empress. She ran to her husband and gave him the message from the Duke. Alexander understood that this insidious villain was hunting for. A few hours ago, a servant approached the Duke and reported that the Emperor and Empress had arrived in Raymond County. Straggler was sure they had discovered something. The assistant admitted that the Count had kept evidence of the Duke's order. Lucas heard all this. He decided to rescue his comrade. But the guy is under house arrest. What can he do now? He saw ink and paper on the table and began to write a letter. In the message, he addressed the Emperor and Empress and reported his father's intention to kidnap the Crown Prince. The author asked Alexander and his wife to return back to save their son if they were now in Raymond County, and he signed his name. After reading the letter, Daria was horrified. She urgently needed to see Yuri. Johann reported that everything was ready and brought a horse. The Emperor ordered them to return, but his wife also wanted to go with him. But will she be able to do this, since they only have one horse? His Majesty will go. If Daria will ride with all her might on an unfamiliar horse, will she be able to get there as soon as possible and protect her son? Alexander goes, and then only she. The wife decided to go to the Duke, but does she even understand what she's talking about? The husband is surprised. Even if she chases, she won't be able to help. Regardless of whether what's written in the letter is true or not, the next place where Yuri can be is the Duke's palace. To the Duke's palace, together with the ruler. Johann accepted the order. Alexander demanded to protect her no matter what happened. The warrior is ready to bet his life on it. Johann and Daria were riding a horse. The knight asked the Empress, "Should he go slower?" "No, everything is fine," she answered. The worst thing now is her anxiety and fear, and the rest is unimportant. She must be honest and strong to protect Yuri. Daria asked the knight to get there as soon as possible. He asks to rely on him. Not sparing the horse, the Emperor galloped to the palace, and Yuri was at home at that time. He remembered the holiday and how much fun it was. He promised the puppy that when the mother returned, they would continue their plan. He was happy to hear Lulu barking. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The puppy began to bark angrily. He approached the door, which suddenly opened. It was Lucas, who was dragging him along and demanding that he follow him. Lucas dragged the Crown Prince out of the main gate of Ilveria Castle. He said he was going to play a little with the guards who were on duty near the exit. But the boy himself did not understand what had happened and why there was such urgency. Lucas explained that the Duke's servants are trying to kidnap the prince, but the brave swordsman buys time and asks his comrade to hide. "Isn't it safer to stay in the castle?" asks Yuri. With the ducal coat of arms, they thought it would be easy to get permission to enter. Lucas answered, because he had written a letter. And when he was still at home, he thought, have the pursuers not yet headed there? And what if they both don't get out? The unfortunate guy doubted, but suddenly remembered Yuri's words. Once he said that Lucas was really amazing. And then the Duke's son rushed to his friend and was no longer going to listen to his father. In the forest, a man in a cloak was waiting for them, holding the horses. He greeted the prince, but all greetings later. The stranger put the heir on her horse and Lucas sat on the other horse. The Duke's son ordered them to rush to where they would not be found. Upon arrival, Lucas introduced the prince to their savior. It was Matthew, Alabaster, the Duke's son's tutor. The savior removed his hood from his head, smiled, and greeted the crown prince. Yuri is also glad to meet him and asks for forgiveness. Alabaster asks him not to apologize. He is glad that he could help him. In childhood, Her Majesty the Empress helped their current savior. The prince was surprised, and Lucas heard about it for the first time. Therefore, the boy always wanted to repay the lady for her kindness. For a young man, the opportunity to help not only the Duke's son, but also the Empress and the prince is the greatest honor. Matthew is sure that no one will dare to touch the prince with a finger. And Yuri remembered how his mother hugged him, but he did not ask her his last question then. They heard a knock on the door. Someone shouted from behind the wall. "Here they are, tell the Duke." The Emperor stood on the parade ground and listened to the military reports. They were searching, but the rain had washed away the tracks. Alexander also jumped on his horse and rode off. Where is Yuri? This worries him very much. All who are connected to the Reaper of Death will die. The Duke's guards surrounded the house where the fugitives were. Alabaster came out to them and drew his sword. But the brave man did not have time to join the battle. Suddenly, the Emperor appeared here, who struck down the enemies with a few blows. Matthew looked at the ruler in surprise. The door of the house opened and Yuri appeared on the threshold. He saw his father and ran to him. They finally hugged after hours of separation. The boy was very happy and touched. The father apologized for being late. Finally, the emperor ordered the castle to return. And he himself will not return? Asked Yuri. But the ruler must go to the empress. But the prince also wanted to see his mother. Alexander turned to Lucas. If it weren't for his letter, the situation would have gotten worse. He thanked him for his great help. The boy bowed and asked for forgiveness for not being able to stop his father. He is ready to wait for his father in the castle. The boy will accept any punishment for the ducal house. The emperor promised to think about it. The three of them got into the wicket and drove off. Unexpectedly, Yuri asked to stop. The emperor turned around and saw his son running up to him. He handed the cloak to his father and asked him to give it to his mother. She was probably lonely and cold now. The ruler silently took the clothes. Meanwhile, in the Duke's castle, Johann's warriors detained a criminal. What a hassle he caused. The colonel was disappointed. A young man entered the room, and the empress at first mistook him for her son. And before that, the Duke gloated over Her Majesty. He asks for forgiveness, but she came here in vain. No matter how hard the ruler tries, she can do nothing based on her title alone. Daria ordered the Duke to be taken away. Evening came. She asked Johann about new news. Strangely, nothing was known so far. She suggested to her faithful companion to return to the castle as soon as possible. Perhaps the ruler had already met with Yuri. Daria suddenly opened her eyes in surprise. The emperor himself was rushing towards them. He had gone to look for his son. So why was he here? Alexander dismounted, came up and took his wife by the hands. Yuri is alive, he reassured her. The unhappy girl almost cried. She was incredibly happy and wanted to see her little son as soon as possible. Suddenly, he ran up and hugged his mother with a happy face. The boy threw his cloak over his mother. You were surprised and hugged your son. Tears came to her eyes. The emperor watched all this silently. The peaceful family idyll was destroyed by the approaching Johann. The knight reported that everything was in order. Alexander entrusted everything else to him. Johann accepted the order and addressed Her Majesty the Empress and the young master Yuri. It was already getting dark, and they were frozen in the rain, so he wanted to take them to a warm place. Mother and son looked at their loyal subordinate in surprise. But soon Yuri was splashing around in the bathtub full of foam. Yes, they had Johann to thank. Daria washed her son. She wondered if he was too wet. The son didn't answer very much. He remembered how they had washed Lulu earlier. Probably the little puppy also enjoyed it as much as the boy did now. Until that moment, the heir's heart was pounding all the time. Yuri couldn't stop thinking about what had happened during the day. Now he felt warm and cozy because his mother was nearby. The Empress felt the same way. She was very happy to see her son safe and sound. In fact, the girl is very scared now. As if her son could disappear somewhere again. Yuri considers it necessary to thank his father. After all, he brought him here because of the boy's whim. Then on the street, he asked his father to take him to his mother. She was alone. Yuri thought she was lonely there. The emperor pointed to the rain. It was getting stronger, and his son might fall on this horse. The prince was sadly forced to agree. The emperor pointed to the carriage. It would go faster than the carriage. It would shake, so if he didn't mind, let him get in. Yuri agreed with great joy. Already at home in the bathroom, he admitted. The carriage really did shake very much, and if he had been riding his father's horse, it would have been even worse. The boy turned around and saw his mother crying. What happened to her? He asks. Daria apologized. Just think, he came to her, although he was very scared. But she is glad to see him now. Yuri shouted to his mother about the foam on his face. Daria was very happy that her son came to visit her. The boy looked at her in surprise and thought that he should have waited in the castle. A worthy crown prince would have done so. The empress suddenly smiled and suggested washing off the foam. The prince was glad that he had trained himself to be naughty before. The mother and son smiled and rejoiced. Johann came into the room and asked for forgiveness. He brought a snack on a tray for dinner. He leaves everything here. He noticed a change of clothes on the crib, which they brought. The knight took a piece of paper and saw an inscription. In the note, the author wanted to ask for something special. namely, to stay with him longer. Johann is perplexed. He immediately thought of Mr. Yuri, the Emperor of Arrows, in the room and studied the mode of the sheet of paper. Nearby was Johann. The knight remembered about the master Yuri. And I wonder if he is still worried? They will always be together. The faithful vassal remembered their previous meeting. Something happened? Asked Alexander. No, answered Johann and asked, how did the investigation go in the Duke's mansion? Nothing. The ruler was upset. So how is it all over? Asks the knight. The emperor ordered Johann to go to bed. In the morning, they would return to the castle. The knight was glad. Sleep is food for the soul. He wished him good night and left. The ruler was left alone. He opened a drawer of the table and took out a hardcover book. In the morning, Daria and Yuri approached the palace. I wonder if Emma and the others are angry that he left without saying a word. Worries the prince. How can they be angry? The servants will greet the boy with a smile. As always, the mother is sure. The first to come running was the delighted Emma. She began to hug the little prince. The girl asks to forgive her. She considers herself unworthy of a maid because she could not protect the young master, although it is her duty. The empress is surprised. What happened to the head maid? The latter also jumped out. She arrives in no less excited and surprised state. The woman threw a cape over Yuri and worries. After all, he was cold all this time. Mother and son are shocked by such a meeting of their servants. The maid standing behind explained the behavior of their colleagues. They were so worried that during the absence of the owners, they did not eat anything at all. Daria smiled, watching how the head maids looked after the prince. For some reason, the empress felt nostalgic about this picture. The butler came up and announced that dinner was being served and asked everyone to go to the dining room. Yuri was touched by the servants' actions. He apologized for making them worry. Finally, the mother opened her arms. "Welcome back, Yuri," she cried. The boy ran to his mother with great joy. He was very happy. Soon, the empress with her son, as well as Lucas and Matthew Alabaster, sat at the table. "Thank you for the invitation, Her Majesty. Daria is glad that these guests are here." The young swordsman's mentor simply followed his master, he said. Lucas noted that his father is to blame for everything. He considers the empress to be very kind. Her son's comrade is a good man. Daria admitted that she, like her father, belongs to the ducal family of Straggler, but those around her call her the Baron's daughter. Lucas was taken aback by this information. The empress smiled, and he must have known about it. Daria asks the guests to eat before the food gets cold. The Baron's house. Lucas remembered his father speaking disdainfully of this too. Although he thought it was normal in noble society, the boy wondered if the empress had it hard because of her origins. Lucas understood everything. That's why she addresses him not as Straggler, but by his name. The guy apologized, but he wonders how his father will be punished. Sooner or later, he will find out. What can she say now? The Duke is sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping a member of the Imperial family and attempted murder. Lucas will be stripped of his title. Yuri is worried. The boy understood everything. He will be expelled from the domain, and the prince won't have to fight him for the right to inherit. He's happy for his comrade. Now he has no rivals. The faces of the two guys flew in sad. Daria has a proposal for Lucas. Doesn't he want to become her son's personal knight? This proposal shocked Lucas. The empress reassured him. Not now, of course. The Imperial Guard has a boarding school, so there won't be any problems with housing. Don't they need recommendations from a knightly order or an imperial family? The boy asks. So, won't he allow Daria to give him a recommendation? The empress saw Lucas's swordsmanship at the Holy Sword tournament. She asks him to use his talent and eventually wants him to become the sword that protects the prince. Lucas reminded him that he was the son of a man who had attacked the imperial family, and that was unforgivable. But Yuri was already shouting loudly that he was ready and happy to continue trying together with his comrade. The Duke's son was surprised with excitement. He even clenched his fists. "Really, can I?" the surprised boy asked. The empress smiled and greeted him with all her heart. The next day, they said goodbye to Lucas, who was leaving for school. The boys stepped aside, and the Duke's son reminded the prince that at the party, he had told him that it would have been better if he had never been born. Now the boy would ask for forgiveness for that. He had wanted to apologize for a long time. Yuri suddenly laughed. "Did that happen?" he asked. The boy didn't remember it until his friend told him, so it was okay. Lucas sighed freely, how kind his friend was, but the prince has something to tell him. The last question from the plan has not yet been asked. Even when they were apart, the mother still thought about her son, so now he understands everything without asking. "That's good," smiles Lucas, thanked his comrade. Matthew shouts to the gentleman that the carriage is ready. When Lucas approaches the door, the Empress tells him about the long vacation at school, so he can return to them at any time. The ruler and Yuri will meet him with the words, "Welcome back." Lucas was delighted and answered, "Good." Mother and son wished him a safe journey. A member of the Imperial family should not cry so easily, weakling. The young swordsman patted the prince's hair in a friendly manner. He got into the carriage and said goodbye to his friends. Lucas successfully entered a boarding school. On the other hand, the Duke, who was guilty of all this, was said to have shown no remorse. The Empress wondered what His Majesty thought about this. Executing the criminal will not give them information. So, life imprisonment to create conditions of hell on earth for him. They say that when the Duke was told the sentence, he did not even flinch. On the contrary, he laughed. To put 2 children in danger and still find the strength to laugh? The Empress is shocked. Unforgivable. She thought about her behavior. She asked her husband for forgiveness for showing him such an ugly side. Got it. She needs to calm down. "So she was told about the Duke's behavior?" asked Alexander. "About the recent conversation." At that moment, the Emperor was talking to a criminal. He wanted to cut off his head immediately to make him shut up. "Did he say something?" the Empress asked. The answer was no. The ruler wanted to say that he felt the same as his wife. That was not true, she was sure. For the ruler, the prince is an instrument for the continuation of the country's existence. And in his past life, and even on the day he had a fever, the king's opinion never changed. If the instrument is lost, a new one can be created. For him, it is replaceable. But for the Empress, the only one and irreplaceable. The wife turned to her husband. He is always calm and even now keeps his cool. So it is not the same. "Is it really like that?" asks Alexander. "Did His Majesty raise Yuri for the sake of the country?" asked Daria. "This is the second question," said the Emperor. "Does not deny that it is so. The day when Yuri was kidnapped." The man's hands still tremble from that. And he cannot get rid of anxiety and cannot even sleep from fear that one day he will lose his son. The wife confessed to the same feeling. Alexander asks about her plans for the rest of the day. There are none. The Emperor called the butler Sebas. 3 maids will prepare Her Majesty for the exit. Daria is surprised by this development. What if it means? Forgot? The Emperor reminded. They had agreed. The wife will devote the whole day to her husband. Daria put on the suit she usually uses when riding a horse. They were both outside. She is used to it, but for her husband, it is unusual. The girl moves comfortably, but still a little nervous. Alexander gave her his hand, and Daria jumped on his horse. "Sometimes it's good to try something new," he says. She agrees with him. At first, the Empress was not in the mood, but to calm down, she realized that she needed a rest. While they were riding, the Emperor asked if she didn't like the territory. "No, on the contrary," she answered. "Leave Yuri and go outside?" It seems that won't work. The Empress agreed to spend the day with her husband, but she wonders what he will offer. If you move a little, your mood will probably change too. Alexander, I wonder, does your wife like hunting? She knows how to use a bow a little, although she has never hunted. The ruler agreed to train with a bow. Is he into hunting? She asked. Her husband replied, in the last 10 or 20 years. So Yuri will show interest in this business someday, Daria thought. She told him about Lucas and thought he would be suited to fight with a sword. The Empress is determined to continue communicating with the Duke's son, marriage and children for the sake of continuity. After Yuri was born in his past life, the husband and wife hardly spoke. Maybe she should pay a little more attention to her husband? Daria thought. Her husband has been surprising her lately. They finally arrived at the shooting range. There were a huge number of flowers around. Daria admires. How beautiful. The Emperor suggested that she go for a walk. The girl did not even know that there was such a beautiful place on the castle grounds. As a ruler, she had to have access to any part of the complex. This is the Emperor's order. There should be no doors here that she could not open. Suddenly, Alexander asked his wife for forgiveness. He was very sorry. They stood opposite each other in a field of flowers. Alexander feels guilty that he left his wife like that. But he promises that he will no longer allow her to feel limited. And he surprises all the time. Thought Daria. The husband apologized, so the wife should forgive and forget. She considers him not the only culprit. This is only the wish of the Emperor himself, and she is not obliged to accept it. They went to the shooting range. Daria was delighted by her husband's impressive shooting, and he offered her to try. The Empress agreed. She felt as if she was making her husband nervous. Good. She needed to finish this thing as soon as possible. The first arrow flew a couple of meters and fell to the ground. It was so hard to shoot. Daria suggested finishing right away. Otherwise, at this rate, they wouldn't start doing what her husband had planned. But Alexander demanded to try again. The husband took his wife's hand and adjusted it a little. He asked her to look at the target and relax her shoulders. The bowstring should be pulled slowly. Daria remembered an intimate moment and when she felt the temperature of his fingers. Finally, the arrow almost hit the target. The Emperor asked to try several times. I remembered the extra one, the girl thought. She considers it necessary to concentrate on the bow. Was it the extra force? Asked Daria when she had finished shooting. Yes, said her husband. Alexander is sure she has no strength in her arms. Is she really that weak? The wife is disappointed. The Emperor recommends that she do as he has already shown. On the next attempt, Daria finally hit the mark. The Empress was happy. It finally worked out. Alexander noticed that the day was drawing to an end. Could his wife consider this a compliment? He answered, yes. And in general, he was glad that she got carried away. Was she really carried away, he asked? When did she start enjoying it? Daria asked herself. Obviously, something had changed in the couple, but what exactly? In her past life, the girl was only required to give birth to an heir. There were no apologies. Comparing with those times, everything is clear, but that doesn't mean the past has disappeared. And the day was really coming to an end. What a colorful sunset appeared in the sky. Now this is just madness. The Empress thought sadly. Her husband called her, and she immediately responded. What's next after the bow and arrow? The girl wonders. Alexander invited Yuri to dinner and calls his wife, asks her to change clothes. Daria was just fulfilling an agreement to spend the whole day with her husband. Returning to the palace, she was surprised by the upcoming dinner at the same table with her family. Probably even spears are falling from the sky today, from the day Daria first lost her son, holding him to her chest. No. Even from an earlier age, she always dreamed of one thing: ordinary, everyday life, where the family laughs together. 3 maids appeared from nowhere, asking forgiveness for keeping her waiting. They brought 3 outfits with them and asked which one the Empress would like. For Daria, they all seemed to have the same face. The Empress wanted to clarify something, but the maids interrupted her. By order of His Majesty, they came to serve the Empress. They gave their names, Yuri, Ari, and Carrie, and asked for the first order for themselves. Daria remembered the imperial holiday when she told her husband that she had no servants. So he remembers what she said then? She saw behind the servants incredibly beautiful dresses of a sky blue hue. And in it, skillfully inlaid with precious stones, the ruler is absolutely delighted. She really likes this beautiful dress. According to the maids, the Emperor chose this outfit for his mistress personally. One of them let it slip. The Emperor asked not to tell his wife that he was the one who prepared this dress, because he does not know what kind of pieces his wife likes. Daria admired the dress. No, she should not immediately become inflamed with joy, she thought, or maybe change her dress for another one. 3 maids were right there. Soon the mistress appeared in the dining room where her husband was already sitting at the table. She bowed to His Majesty and thanked him for preparing such an outfit for her, and he has the same suit. Daria noticed what her wife was wearing. She wonders, If she had not chosen such a dress, what would he have done then? This is not an official occasion, and if the clothes do not match, it will not harm the reputation of the dynasty, said Alexander. The emperor was happy. He guessed that his wife would choose this dress. He helped her sit down at the table, and she waited for Yuri. When will he come? Alexander thinks that the training has dragged on, and his son is still absent. According to his wife, sometimes he goes too far, although she is a little worried now. Maybe he is like her, suggested the husband. Daria is perplexed by such words. The ruler thought, while he is not in the castle, his wife as an empress lives in complete prosperity. He considers himself guilty, thinking so, but she has never asked him for help or complained. She has not complained to him. Maybe that is why now he wants to hear the girl's story. Is it too selfish? In fact, it is truly selfish. No matter how many times she listens to words of repentance, that former indifferent coldness and hurtful words immediately come to mind. And yet Daria wishes that His Majesty would be a father to Yuri and look at him exactly like that. She wants it, and her husband promised. Yuri came to them, asking his parents for forgiveness for waiting. The boy was leading a cook with a cart and was himself dressed in a kitchen worker's uniform. Mother and father were very surprised by this. What is going on here? Asked Daria. Now the boy will prepare a special dinner for them in the style of Ilvaria, solemnly announced Yuri. He will also serve the finished dish himself before it gets cold. The parents had to wait a little for the food. It is a special chicken gratin with Ilvaria spices. There was a note in which the boy thanked his parents for everything. Yuri cooked it himself? Daria is surprised. Emma and the head cook helped him. The boy overcooked the meat a little. At the end, he added some spices and with a smile wished his father and mother a bon appetit. The mother couldn't stop looking at her son, how much she loved him. The prince asked his father, did he like it too? Very good, he praised. Daria is ready to eat this every day, and the spices and gratin go great together. There is actually a reason why the prince used Ilvaria's spices. Lucas keeps telling him, stop crying, you wimp. Yuri didn't understand how to become a worthy heir. Is he really fit for the role? But there are people who try their best, so the boy cannot stop in doubt. He wants to change, and he added Ilvaria spices to the dish, a symbol of strength to become stronger and change. He will eat a lot today. Change. The emperor thought about this word. He called his son and began to feed him with a spoon. This surprised the empress. She thinks it would be easier to eat if His Majesty took a smaller piece. Meanwhile, the father continued to feed the heir. The boy was full. Now he asked his father to eat. Soon the plates were lowered on the table. A melody began to play. Was it the one they danced to at the imperial feast? The mother, of course, remembered. Yuri asked to play it. He wants to hear it again with his mother. He turned to his father. Does he have any memorable composition? Dawn, he answered. He asked his mother, does His Majesty really listen to such melodies? The sound makes his soul so warm. The boy wondered what his father felt when he listened. The emperor thought about it, but could not answer. His brother brought him a cup of drink. He asked, is it good music, huh? The king was surprised. Alexander doesn't understand anything at all. According to his brother, this is a melody that sings of gratitude and giving. When listening to it, you want to try even harder for the sake of the people. And his brother can think about others. The ruler is busy only with himself. The brother smiled and patted him on the head, saying, no sweets for the stubborn one. All these were memories of Alexander. He is full of strength, he said to his son. The boy is happy. Now he will listen to this melody before each training. Yuri noticed his mother's face. What color is it? Daria smiled. Everything is fine. She just didn't sleep until late yesterday. Since the moment when she almost lost her son for the second time, she can't sleep. When she closes her eyes, she is overcome with anxiety. The long day must have shown on her face. She asks her son not to worry. The emperor turned to the boy and called him boss. He wants something to drink after the meal, warm milk or chamomile tea. Yuri smiles and asks to rely on him. Where does the emperor want this served? The ruler's answer is, of course, in the boy's mother's bedroom. In a room with high windows sat a certain aristocrat, and next to him stood a servant. The first spoke of a strange fugitive. He did not expect that it would be able to hold him. Go to him? The servant asks the master to rest, and he will get ready. The stranger is waiting to meet his grandson. The emperor, empress, and their son were sitting in the bedroom. Yuri apologizes for the wait. He brought hot milk for the night. He asks his mother to drink it while it is warm. The girl promises to try it with a smile, sweet and delicious. Daria appreciated the milk. The boy revealed the secret ingredient, lots of honey. To help her sleep better, he cast a special spell on it. The girl is pleased. Now she seems to be falling asleep. Here, Yuri offered the service of a lullaby. It lulls. Is there any greater happiness? The mother rejoiced in her mind. The boy fell asleep himself while singing a song. The next second, he woke up and asked his mother for forgiveness. She calmed him down and asked him not to worry. The emperor thinks his son is tired. He just finished training. Daria thanks her husband for inviting them today along with Yuri. They rarely eat together except at official events. And her son was happy. And hasn't your wife been bored here all day? Asked Alexander. After a long break, she was able to relax, and today is a really good day. At first, she was angry for a long time at the Duke, who did not repent to me. And if you remember the dress and milk, then the day is excellent. The emperor asks his wife's permission to join her and Yuri, sometimes in a serious tone. The man asks his wife to think about it. He takes his son in his arms and is ready to carry him to the bedroom. He wishes Daria good night. After that, the empress enjoyed relaxing in the bath, and 3 maids helped her. They wonder, does the empress like her new dress? They so want to see her matching outfit, because they prepared everything. The maids admitted that it was a great honor for them. Daria asks, are the maids all from the count's house, Alexander? She is from the baron's family. The maids admitted, they are here because they want to serve the empress. They are grateful to the emperor for giving them a place here in the castle. Daria is sure. Her husband wants to change too. And he went out into the fresh air. He remembered how he asked permission to join his wife and Yuri. She will probably refuse. Or it could be even better. They can't spend much time together. By involving a wife who has no connection to the imperial court in politics, a ruler who had never even thought about the role of a father before, they can't want the Reaper to be near their spouse and child. That's why Alexander limited himself to 1 day, so as not to want more. That turned out to be too weak a decision. The emperor remembered how his wife acted with a bow at the shooting range. He was trying to figure out the wedding ring. He stood up and went, but saw Daria. She asks for forgiveness. She simply did not notice her husband in the dark and exclaimed a little strangely. Thanks to Yuri, the empress could hardly sleep, and now she is very worried because of this feeling. The husband is silent, and the wife, for some reason similar to a ghost, asks him to tell her something. Daria stood in front of the table and looked at the small box. From the moment she parted with the pendant from the emperor, she no longer wore her wedding ring, because the empress was disgusted with the former her, clinging to his majesty. Although the maids who treated Daria differently, there are many nobles who dislike her. Therefore, wearing this decoration is a way to let these people know that she is defenseless. Perhaps this stubbornness itself was a mistake. The empress also needs to change. When she stood on the street with the emperor, he asked him to say something to her. He mentioned the ring. Daria simply decided that she needed to pay him back somehow. Alexander suspected that she had sold it. And he wanted it to be that way? No, the husband definitely doesn't want that. Already at home, Daria asked him to end it there. She urged him to inform the maids when she knew what day he would have free time, and suggested having dinner with Yuri again. When the empress was resting in her bedroom, she again imagined that scene. Yuri with a sword, she, and next to him, Alexander. Behind the prince, Lucas was located. He asks the heir, is he okay? Yes, everything is fine. The guy answers. He asks his comrade to say hello to his grandfather and to proceed further as he wishes. A blow with a sword and Yuri is already lying on the floor in blood. Lucas is leaning over him. He is unauthorized, whispered the personal knight. The empress woke up. Her son woke her up. He is glad that his mother is conscious. Is she okay? he asks. According to the boy, his mother was moaning in her sleep. The prince looks at her with a worried look. Daria took her son by the hands and calmed him down. Everything is fine with her. And this dream was yesterday. It seems she parted with His Majesty and went to bed, and then Yuri's silhouette with a sword. Was it really a dream? The boy looked at his mother with concern. Was she really okay? The Empress apologized. Yes, of course. And asked him, why is he in his mother's bedroom? The Crown Prince apologizes for entering without her permission. He just woke up early, came over to say good morning, and heard groans. He immediately ran to wake up his mother. When she's scared, he's there. A feeling of tenderness appeared on the Empress's face. She hugged her son and said that she needs to drink more milk with honey from Chef Yuri. He laughs and promises to cook it any time. She looked at the boy and thought, he was the one who had supported her so carefully. And in the end, he would fall into despair and end his own life. Yuri suggested that they take a nap together today, or go outside to unwind. The Empress replied, she has some things to do. When Mom finds time, they will definitely take a rest during the day. The boy was forced to agree. Emma came and took him. Daria needs to eliminate worries about the future as soon as possible so that her son can live happily. She drank milk. The cold air, the smell of blood, the sad voice. It was all too real to be considered a normal dream. While she was thinking about all this, she broke a glass. Now she still had to apologize to the maids. Yuri was here not long ago. He mentioned his grandfather. He probably meant the former emperor, who is now retired. He didn't even show up for her and the emperor's wedding. And what is he doing now? Her husband obviously knows. The Empress will not let her son's future be cut short like this. She entered His Majesty's office and wants to ask a question. The emperor was sitting at the table in the office. Johann was collecting sheets of paper lying on the floor. The knight greeted the ruler. She was worried. What had happened? The Imperial Council was about to meet, and he was sorting through the documents. Daria apologizes for taking up their time during such a busy period. She didn't expect to surprise the men with a sudden visit. No, Johann replied. The emperor asks him not to be so nervous. The husband came to his wife and asked, what happened? No, she was here for the opportunity to ask one question. This surprised Alexand. The wife wants to know about about His Majesty's father. Daria thought he didn't really want to talk about it. She'd have to retreat for now. And then there was the Imperial Council coming up. It wasn't the best time for such conversations. Better another time. Does she want to take part? Asked her husband. Daria was just about to leave, but this question stumped her. All the noble families of the empire gather at the council. Perhaps she will find out what she wants there. In the Great Hall, the guests standing at the edges greeted His Majesty the Emperor of Ilvaria, who illuminated the country. Behind him walked Daria. The aristocrats were surprised by her presence. They wondered what the ruler had planned. The august couple took their throne seats. The aristocrats did not move. Why are you standing? They are asked. They have already started to take their seats. Have they forgotten how to greet? Finally, Her Majesty Empress Ilvaria was greeted. Daria asks everyone to take their seats. The guests have come to their senses after the nervous situation. At the Imperial Council, the highest-ranking nobles of the empire gather in one room to perform their own reporting duties to the ruler. Count Straggler was also mentioned at the meeting. The lands once under his lordship's protection are experiencing financial difficulties. One of the nobles asks the emperor to urgently increase the additional budget. He is thinking about it. If it were Robert, everything would be so simple, thought the guests. The ruler reported that he had to provide a sufficient budget. There are no further grounds for discussing this topic. The aristocrats are horrified by this decision. They ask His Majesty to reconsider his own decisions. Daria knew that Count Robert is the emperor's father and the grandfather of her son Yuri. She had heard that he was a great patron of the nobility. The empress accused everyone present of only wanting to line their pockets. Everyone looked at her in great surprise, including Johann. Daria told about his previous journey to the estate of Count Raymond. People there are forced to live in poverty, although they still desperately try to survive. Probably the owner also lived in luxury, receiving support from the Straggler family. The empress turned to the instigator of the dispute and asked, What about his? Alexander rose from the throne. The conversation is over. If they present a financial plan, he will consider it. If abuses are found, they themselves understand the extent of the punishment. The emperor, his wife, and Johann left the throne room. The girl sighed calmly. They had managed it now. Behind them, 3 aristocrats called Daria. She was magnificent today. They complimented. The ruler thanked them and said special thanks for their efforts. One of the delegates noted that it was nothing serious. They had suffered so much with these aristocrats at the head of Straggler. As a nobleman, he was very ashamed of all this. But now that the emperor and empress are together, this nobleman can breathe a sigh of relief. He believes that Ilvaria is safe, and those who support the emperor's power want to know when they became so close. The nobles love the crown prince with all their hearts. But what about the second? Another delegate wondered if the rulers would visit his domain one day. Alexander said that he had business with the ruler. They had to leave. They walked along the corridor and the emperor held Daria. When he let go of her hand, he explained his actions. He wanted to get out of that place as soon as possible. Wasn't that too pushy? No, the wife answered. And she learned something about the emperor's father. Daria didn't expect Robert's views to be so aristocratic. The previous ruler had made policies in the interests of the nobility, who had become rich while the people lived worse. The country was on the brink of turmoil, and it needed something deeper, something that would clarify the dream. Alexander admitted that he always tried not to be like that. He went forward with the corresponding thoughts. He admitted that he left his wife and offspring aside. He asked, "Should I tell about my father?" Alexander brought Daria to the Great Hall. She looked around. She heard that there was a room with portraits of all the emperors. It was a fascinating sight. They stood in front of a huge image of the former ruler on the throne. Yuri once asked to say hello to his grandfather. Alexander thinks it might have been about his father. If their connection was so deep that it was worth leaving the last words, then most likely it was about Lord Robert. It was about the father, Alexander thinks. Daria asks, "What is he doing now?" She needs any information. The ruler looked at his wife and said, "His connection with him." These are the words he least wanted to hear. After the death of his brother Alexander, since his father left the palace to restore it, they never met. In fact, they broke off relations. The ruler says that Lord Robert loved his brother, Lord Leo, very much. Before Leo had time to grow up, he was given the Order of Rubelite, the sign of the heir. But his brother never bragged about it to Alexander. He was a worthy man. Daria knew that this guy died young. She heard about it when she was a child, but now she finds it difficult to remember the details. The girl thinks that now is not the time to delve into the history of Mr. Leopoint. She asks her husband for forgiveness for touching on such a difficult topic. The emperor understands everything, but he also has a question. Why did his wife suddenly start to take an interest in his parent? Daria looked at her companion in surprise. If she tells the truth, they won't believe her. But you can't fool your husband with a lie, she thought. After Yuri started talking about Lord Robert, Daria dreamed that he disappeared somewhere. Is that the only reason? Asked her husband. Yes, she answered. Alexander does not understand why his father appeared after everything that happened. Is that why she sleeps badly? He asked. Perhaps, said the wife. Alexander recommends that she see the court doctor. When the doctor examined the girl, he asked, "Has she been under a lot of emotional stress lately?" Remembering the nightmare, Daria answered affirmatively. She often sees visions that seem too realistic. They are not the most pleasant for a girl. She wonders, is there anything that can be done about it? According to the doctor, when a person is under emotional stress, the same dream can repeat itself over and over again. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid. If the girl allows herself to rest, everything should gradually return to normal. Daria understands everything. She is too fixated on this, but it is also difficult to switch immediately. The doctor will prescribe a sleeping pill. Let her use it for now. The emperor is interested in the side effects. Almost instant drowsiness, dizziness, weakness, headache may also occur. The doctor replied. Having said this, the doctor turned away and left the room. The spouses are left alone. The emperor asks, "Is the wife not going to drink sleeping pills?" Alexander hands her a glass and asks her to drink. Daria looks at him warily. She does not spare herself when it comes to Yuri. The ruler reproaches her. This is the only thing the emperor is sure of when it comes to his wife. Daria remembered the side effects. If she sleeps too deeply and something happens to her son, then the mother simply won't be able to help him. She probably won't be able to get out of it now. After drinking the sleeping pills, the girl fell asleep anyway. The emperor was sitting next to her on the sofa. He saw the notebook covered with writing from the side, took her hands and began to read. The emperor stayed in his wife's bedroom until the morning. Then he left the room and saw 3 maids in front of him. The empress was still sleeping. Let them not wake her. The maids were delighted because His Majesty spent the night in his wife's chambers. Daria slept sweetly on her bed. The trio of faithful housekeepers were in euphoria because the gentlemen spent the whole night together. The maids decided to talk while no one was around. One asked, didn't they think the atmosphere had changed recently? After the birth of His Highness, they no longer spent time together. Her Majesty the Empress really have a second child? The maids wonder. They didn't notice Yuri approaching them. Is it true? He asked. Why is the prince here, in the Empress's chambers? They wonder. The boy came here with flowers. He said that he heard his mother calling a doctor a few days ago, and that's why he was worried. He really hopes that it's not too serious, but rather the opposite. It has not been confirmed yet, Your Majesty, the maids assure. They simply allowed themselves to guess because of the recent changes. But before drawing conclusions, they should ask the Empress herself. The boy was already knocking on the doors of his mother's bedroom in his joy. So, not yet entering the bedroom, Yuri asks for forgiveness for bursting in so unexpectedly. Daria opened the door herself. The boy told her that he heard how he would become an older brother. He is delighted now. The mother closed her eyes and asked her son to go inside first. Glad Yuri was sitting on the sofa with flowers, and the Empress was talking to 3 maids. What does this mean? She asks them. According to one of them, at dawn she accidentally saw the Emperor leaving the Empress's chamber, and then for several days in a row they called a doctor. So the maids thought that perhaps this would be the Empress's second child. The maid noticed the mistress's ailments and allowed herself such a frivolous guess. The maids begged to forgive them. Daria is now the strictest person. Was it that day when there was talk about Lord Robert? The Empress thought. His Majesty, then, stayed with his wife until the morning? She asked the servants about it. Only Yuri heard the rumors? She asked the maids not to forget. They serve her. She explained that rumors could harm people. The maids were in a sad state. The next moment, the Empress was filled with joy. The maid's sincerity always supports her, so she hopes that tomorrow they will help her too. The Trinity asks to forgive them. Then they immediately decline. The mistress dismissed the workers. Yuri anxiously asks his mother, is she busy? If it tires her, he can come another time. The Empress took her son by the hands and asks him to listen to her attentively. She told the boy, there is no child in her and most likely there won't be one in the future either. Yuri was upset. Yes, he understands. He just jumped to conclusions. Does the son feel lonely? Asked Daria. If her son wanted a brother or sister because he was lonely, then his mother should rethink her own attitude, since she made him think that way. Yuri unexpectedly denied. No, not at all. Since that day when his mother opened her heart to him and hugged him, he no longer felt any loneliness. The boy did not want a brother and sister because of this, but simply because he wanted to be a strong older brother who could protect someone, like Lucas. That is, if the mother is healthy and happy, that is more than enough for him. The heir laughed and seemed very cheerful at that moment. The Empress looked a little sad. She apologizes for not living up to her son's expectations. For a mother, seeing her boy's joy is the most important thing in life now. As long as he is safe, everything will be fine in their family. A man entered the dungeon where Duke Straggler was staying. Black cloak with a hood on his head. The prisoner was glad to see him. But he was late, wasn't he? This dog of Lord Robert. The gentleman is undergoing treatment. He cannot go out into this dirty place, the guest announced. He looked at the prisoner. What a pitiful picture. Duke Straggler is deprived of his title, but still does not give up. The alien in the black cloak noted. The prisoner asks to be released from here. After all, the man in black came here for this? He took out a bunch of keys and opened the dungeon lock. The Duke smiled maliciously, anticipating his long-awaited release. St. Raglar laughed. Haha, life imprisonment. What faces will his enemies make when they find out that he has disappeared from this prison? What a long tongue, the stranger told him. Suddenly, the stranger grabbed the former prisoner by the head. What is he doing? He is indignant. The man in black opened the Duke's mouth and poured green liquid into it. His favorite poison, he said. A little stronger than usual, but the criminal would not die. He would merely feel his throat and stomach burning. The Duke was already back in his cell, writhing in pain on the stone floor. The man in black explained. His master had cooperated with the prisoner out of necessity to gain the support of the aristocrats. But the Duke was no longer an aristocrat. In addition, he had betrayed the master of the man in black by raising his hand against His Highness Yuri. Therefore, the villain deserves only one thing: to wallow in the mud. And the man left. He came out of the prison room and unconscious guards lay near the gate. The stranger gave one of them an ampule of antidote. Taking off his hood, he went to take the prince. This same man soon sat before the Empress. Hehheart? That's his name? She asked. Yes, the boy answered. It's a great honor for him to meet Her Majesty. The Lord is being treated in Istria, right? The hostess asked. He came alone? Yes, and he would like to answer all the ladies' questions, but first the young man must fulfill his master's order. Is His Majesty the Emperor here now? The guest asks. The ruler just received a summons and went to prison. What happened? Asked the wife. Yes, it's urgent, the guest replied. If it was just a message, Daria could pass it on. Hehheart decided to get straight to the point. The guest wants to propose that His Majesty the Crown Prince and Mr. Robert conclude a union of rubellite. And he opened a box with a bright and beautiful decoration in front of the Empress. So there really is a connection between Yuri and Lord Robert, the Empress thought. She noticed the precious brooch. Was it the same one that was on her son's neck? Hehheart asked. The rubellite union is something like a teacher-student relationship. Those bound by this contract become closer than family. The guest's master wishes to raise His Highness the heir with his own hands. Daria was not clear what they were trying to achieve with this. She wondered, why did they decide to offer this now? The young man and his master had heard how the prince had recently been attacked. Lord Robert was very concerned about his own grandson, Yuri himself, so that he can learn to defend himself. The Lord is extremely generous in his desires. Are they asking her to give up her son? Asked the Empress. Not at all, Hehheart replied. The former emperor, his master, personally wishes to give the best knowledge to his grandson for the sake of the country. So he will have the opportunity to grow, the Empress thought. In her past life, the ruler rarely visited the palace, and she remained locked in her chambers. Robert makes an alliance with Yuri at this time. She will be even less able to let him go. Hehheart is sure that His Majesty the Emperor will be pleased, because it is for the sake of the empire. Daria thought about the last two words and promised to pass this proposal on to her husband. Hehheart hopes to receive a positive answer upon his return. The hostess advises not to hope too much. The guest reminded, the answer of His Majesty the Emperor is important to them. She does not object, but the current ruler respects the heir's decision. The official answer will be given at the founding celebration. If the refusal is made public, they will not have a chance to get out of it, Daria thought. Besides, the people will be glad to see His Majesty the former emperor for the first time in a long time. The guest laughed. She was right. He said goodbye and hoped that they would see each other at the founding celebration. Daria decided to accompany Hehheart to the gate. At that time, the emperor and Johann were riding their horses. Duke Straggler has not yet come to his senses, said the warrior. The ruler demands that a court physician be appointed to him. The criminal must speak. On the way to the palace, they saw an unfamiliar carriage. Several thoughts flashed through the emperor's head, and he galloped away, leaving Johann alone in place. He was perplexed. Alexander galloped to the gate where his wife was. When did he return? She asked in surprise. His father's servant came here, so what did he say? The ruler asked stormily. The emperor was away, so she spoke to the guest instead. It seems they want Yuri to conclude an alliance with Rubelite. The Emperor is already surprised. He returned to his place and opened the carriage door. What an unexpected coincidence, was heard from there. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. His Imperial Majesty. Hehheart smiled, sitting in the carriage. Alexander did not look at him silently. The two of them were in the carriage. Hehheart opened the box and showed its contents. There was an outfit for His Highness Yuri. It was sewn together with the clothes of the guest gentleman, and the jewel is made of rubelite. The boy showed it to him with a smile. It is exactly the same as the one that was given to Mr. Leo, Hehheart explained. They wanted the prince to wear it when he became the ruler, inheriting the will of his grandfather. Then no one will be able to doubt that he is the rightful heir of Lord Robert. Alexander wonders why he is here? Demands an answer to this question. The guest asks permission to give him a short report. His master is going to formally accept His Highness Yuri as his adopted child at the founding celebration. The Emperor is almost furious. It seems that Her Majesty the Empress is against it. Hehheart smiles. The guest hopes the ruler does not want to make a scene in front of the boy. Hehheart and his master want a peaceful solution. Understood, said Alexander and plunged his sword into the box with the jewel. He did not think that the interlocutor was so stupid. After that, he stood up and left. Hehheart took the box in his hands. What a rude man, he thought about the Emperor. Everything was prepared by his master, and this man. The eyes of the young servant gleamed unkindly. The Empress was sitting with the boy in the room on the bed. Does grandfather want to make him his adopted son? He asked. The Empress intends to refuse such an offer, but she decided to tell Yuri about it in advance. Suddenly, he will receive such an initiative. The Empress asks her son not to worry. She will not allow it. But the boy would like to talk to his grandfather one day. Daria is surprised. Yuri himself is amazed by the story of his own adoption by a close relative. The boy had never met his grandfather. He wondered why he cared so much about him. It was only natural, Daria thought. The boy stood up, walked over to the table, and picked up a bouquet of flowers. Is grandfather ill? He asked. Will a gift of flowers please him? The Empress looked at her son with wide open eyes. And the boy was ready to write him a letter in case grandfather was lonely. If so, he could hug him like a mother hugs her offspring. Perhaps, Daria answered. She would consult with His Majesty. In fact, she did not want Yuri to meet Lord Robert. But the boy's desire to see his grandfather and his kindness, could she deprive him of that? Emma was already busy with flowers, and Yuri started drawing. There was already a puppy next to him. The boy wondered what his grandfather was like. He had only seen him in a portrait before, and he seemed very strong. If Yuri becomes as strong as Lucas or his father, then he can proudly meet his grandfather. The prince turned to the maid and asked, Can Johann train him today? The maid hid her hands behind her back and fell silent. The boy is surprised. Did something happen to Emma? The maid smiled and asked for forgiveness. She was just thinking. The prince looked at the housekeeper in confusion. Daria sat on the bench and studied the contents of a white sheet of paper. It was information on Hehheart Rosenberg. He was reported to be a Viscount stock and had previously worked as a gardener in the household of the highest nobility. His loyalty to Lord Robert seems to be very great. His Majesty the Emperor approached her and sat down next to her. Is this the investigation report on Hehheart? He asked. Yes, the wife answered. And did he recognize him earlier? If father orders, this servant will do anything, the ruler said, even murder. If Hehheart is ordered to die, he will do it without hesitation. Now he enjoys the favor of the emperor's father, and after Leo's death, he took his place. Everything around the former ruler stopped on the day his brother Alexander died. Alexander believes it was his mistake that provoked all this. Tomorrow, he will review the security measures at the foundation party. Yuri's security will be top-notch. No need to let down your guard. The Empress bowed her head. Only she knows what will happen in the future. If you move forward blindly without turning around, sooner or later you can hurt someone, Alexander believes. Therefore, let the spouse not be afraid to rely on others. She turned towards her husband. Surprise literally dawned on her. Perhaps this is unnecessary advice, the ruler thinks. No, really, she said. The Empress really does take on too much, even if it was a little knowledge about the future and the connections that the girl created in her second life. She thanked her husband for such advice. After that, she stood up and went to the palace. The Emperor remained sitting on the bench and looking ahead. Now Daria knew she was not alone. If she was going to prepare for the founding celebration, she would need her husband's help. In the palace, she saw Emma. Just in time, she thought. The maid looked at her mistress with a frightened face. The faithful maid explained. An envelope had just been delivered. Daria immediately thought of a recent guest named Hehheart. She asks the maid to calm down, come into the room and talk normally. What happened anyway? Unexpectedly, Hehheart did not come. So Emma also delivered these letters? He asked. The guy knows about it? The Empress is surprised? Yes, his answer. There are already rumors. Signatures are being collected in support of Yuri's restoration by Lord Robert. They heard about the family's refusal and decided to strike first. Emma said the letter described her own family members in detail. Their lives and movements were clearly being closely monitored. Emma is afraid. If she doesn't sign, something bad will happen to her loved ones. Daria hugged him, trying to console him. These are almost threats, and the opponents are ready to do anything just to get the prince, thought the Empress. The Empress offered her loyal servant to move her family to the castle. She looks at her with surprise. Daria is ready to take care of the safety of the maid's loved ones. So they decided. Soon, the ruler received Emma's parents and her younger sister, Rita. They thanked her for such care. Daria assured, people will be completely safe here. She promises to protect them. The guests don't even know how to express their gratitude. Emma introduced her younger sister to the hostess, and she asks her to say hello to Daria. The little girl looked at her with fear, and the maid apologized for her behavior. The Empress smiles. Everything is fine. Hehheart will also remain in the palace as a personal guard of His Highness Yuri. If help is needed, let the guests turn to him. Even a great hero will be in the palace. What a reliable protection, Emma's father admired. After talking to her husband, the first person that came to the Empress's mind was Hehheart. At the celebration of imperial glory, he provided shields. Such a person can literally become a reliable shield for... Emma said that she is indebted to Her Majesty the Empress, so she wants to take the oath of allegiance once again. The mother is proud of her daughter. She has become so bright, and it is all thanks to the ruler. Daria was surprised by these words, and the maid's father explained. They had been worried about their daughter for a long time. Her letters after her departure were sad, but then they became brighter. Relatives hoped for changes in their daughter's soul. Now it became clear why everything was like this. The housekeeper's mother thinks it's because the Empress is around. Emma admitted she's happy here. According to the maid's mother, her daughter can be hot-tempered. Has she caused trouble in the palace? And she has a sharp tongue, said the mother. Emma got angry at her parents. Daria is still happy. She understands that for a maid, family is the most reliable support. She always wanted to be like that for Yuri. Yuri entered the room. He had already heard that the Emma family had arrived here and wanted to meet them. The guests stood up and bowed, greeting His Highness the Crown Prince. The boy replied, "Glad to meet you. Daria is ready to escort the guests to their chambers right now." People can't believe that the Empress herself has honored them with such an honor. Hehheart is surprised as Rita steps onto the floor. The little girl is scared of this big man. She hid behind her father's leg and said, "Teddy bear." Hehheart laughed good-naturedly. Maybe. Yuri approached the girl and asked her not to worry. Mr. Hehheart is a kind and strong teddy bear. He will protect them, the boy promised the girl. Emma and the Empress stood aside and watched this. Yuri is just like an older brother. The maid smiled. The prince promised to do everything in his power for his new acquaintance. Rita wants to see the castle. Yuri is delighted. He took her hand and they went. The Empress and Hehheart walked a little behind the boys. The boy showed the girls different sights of the castle. Daria thinks he is already a real older brother. The boy pointed to the dark corridor ahead, and he saw Rita's reaction. She was scared. What should he tell her at such a moment? If so, then let her take his hand and it won't be scary anymore. But Rita looked at her companion in bewilderment. He became embarrassed. What did he say? Adults think. He is just like Lucas. For the prince, the Duke's son was an important figure. The Empress came up and took her son by the hand. She agreed with him. If you do it this way, then it is not scary at all. The three of them went on, and Hehheart, standing behind them, was touched by this picture. Daria asked Rita, how did she like the castle? The girl answered, she had fun, and the prince is always ready to give a tour to his guest. As I expected, the future emperor of Ilvaria, he is already so reliable. Laughs Hehheart. Yuri smiled good-naturedly and denies, he is still far from his father. He remembered his mother's words about the need to follow the example of those whom one has to admire. Then for His Majesty Yuri, such an example is His Highness the Emperor, said Rita. Golden words, laughs the Empress. Maybe it is worth asking Mr. Klaus how to become a good ruler? Smiles Hehheart. Yuri hung his head and answered, no, it's not worth it. The Empress also noticed the change in her son's mood. He couldn't ask his father about it. The Crown Prince didn't look well now. One day when Yuri was 5 years old, he was walking with Miss Adelaida. She was yelling at him and asking when the boy would finally start behaving like a real heir. Did he really want to disgrace His Majesty the Emperor? Let him think at least a little. Why was he born at all? The woman was indignantly angry. Yuri whispered forgiveness, and next time he would try to do everything right and stronger. Otherwise, he will be abandoned. What to do? After all, with such a tear-stained face, the boy will not be able to go out and greet the guests, and he wants people to always see him as worthy. The Emperor passed by. No, he doesn't expect anything from his son, said the ruler. What is he doing here? Miss Adelaida shouted at the child. The boy began to run away in fear. He thought, why was he born anyway? Yuri stood with his father on the training ground. Warriors were positioned in front of them. The task of the royal knights is not only to protect the heir, the ruler reasoned in front of the line. It is equally important to be able to make the right decisions in the presence of foreign guests. The actions of the guards directly affect the prince's reputation. The emperor urged the warriors not to allow themselves a moment of weakness. Yuri's personal security detail had been formed for the Foundation's celebration. Daria wanted to make sure they were prepared, so she came here. She thought the guys looked pretty reliable. I agree with the Empress and Hehheart. The warriors were personally selected and trained by Mr. Klaus. Only the best soldiers and strategists entered the corresponding squad. The lady managed to communicate with the fighters. One of the soldiers told about a very difficult exam. Lately, His Majesty the Emperor has not taken his eyes off the prince. And during one of the expeditions, the ruler looked at the gift for a long time. Flowers, says another soldier. Daria was surprised by this. Those very flowers. Since that day, when she spent the whole day with the Emperor, she began to better understand the changes in him. Now the lady is sure that His Majesty thinks first of all about his son, even more than about the Empire. But one thing did not give the Empress peace. It seemed to her that Yuri was keeping an invisible wall between himself and his father, just like on the day she met him. And now the boy took a wooden sword. Will he train? Asked the mother. Yes, the son answered happily. Since he was here, he wanted to ask for guidance. Hehheart came up and praised him for his diligence. Sometimes such diligence made Daria uneasy, but if the boy gains self-confidence through training, his heart may at least calm down a little. Since the lady is busy preparing for the founding celebration, Hehheart asks to hand over the prince to him and asks her to return to her duties. The Empress was amused. Yes, he was right, and it was really time to get back to work. By fulfilling her state duty, Daria was also strengthening her son's position. They would work together. After a few hours, Yuri's hands were covered in calluses. As he expected, the Imperial Knights were incredible. They practiced daily and much more than he did. If you look through the eyes of the Emperor, the prince was very weak. The boy was disappointed. Yuri asked Mr. Hehheart to stay here a little longer. His mother was already walking towards him. The boy thought she was busy. According to Daria, she decided to take a little rest. She thinks the training will end soon. The Empress began to embrace her son and invited him to follow her into the chambers. The boy wanted to train a little more, wanting to become stronger, so that his father could see how he had grown during this time. But today he will allow himself a little weakness, and almost fell asleep in his mother's arms. Hehheart came up. The place where Lord Leo died, there was the ruler, she said. Before the eyes of little Klaus, the warrior finished the sentence. Hehheart regretted that he could not come earlier. Yuri woke up. Leo is his father's older brother, he asked. According to the warrior, Lord Klaus should not take part in that operation, but Lord Robert accused him. They haven't met since. Father and grandfather? It's so sad, said Yuri. The boy was happy to see his mother. And if someone had opened the door then, maybe… Daria is interested in the reason for his stay in Istria, Hehheart explained. This is the birthplace of the late wife of the ex-ruler. There was a country residence there. The emperor's father does not allow anyone to enter there except for servants. Hehheart has never been there either. But considering the old man's illnesses, if you think about his last years, it becomes clear why he wants to see his grandson. Even a trip to the palace can be too much of an ordeal for him. Yuri was in his room, packing his backpack. Lulu would have to stay here. The boy heard Hehheart's last words in a dialogue with his mother. If he went to his grandfather himself, then he wouldn't have to strain himself. Are busy now. And the son did not want to disturb them. He so wanted his father and grandfather to be able to make peace. They would probably say that the boy became a worthy prince. Finally, the backpack was completely packed. Yuri stood in the middle of his room with a wide smile, fully prepared. Now he is getting ready to go to his grandfather all by himself. Soon the boy stood before Hehheart, who opened the doors to the guest's grandfather's estate. The butler greeted the child, as well as his guards, who came to accompany the prince. A few days ago, Yuri was about to go to his grandfather. His mother asks, is he going to go to Lord Robert's estate? Yes, the prince answered. He wants to visit his grandfather. Well, he understands that it is dangerous to go there alone, so he is going to take his personal guard knights with him. No one knows what might happen there. Daria worries. She advised her son to send his grandfather just flowers and a letter. The heir asks permission to meet him in person. According to the Empress, Yuri can see his grandfather at the founding celebration. She will do everything to ensure that they have enough time to talk. The prince wants to meet his relative before the celebration. He wants his father and grandfather to finally make peace. As Daria thought, this has already happened. Yuri said that he heard that his father and grandfather had not seen each other for a long time. It must be very sad. Not being able to see his family. Grandfather will be happy with letters and flowers, but he wants to see the boy in person. The prince is happy to see his mother's face when they talk and hear everyone laughing. His heart fills with warmth at such moments, and he feels that their feelings are connected. The boy understands that he is not alone, and that is why he wants to tell his grandfather, personally asking him to meet and talk to Yuri's father. The Empress only looked sadly at the child. Yuri reminded, father and mother are busy with preparations for the Foundation holiday, so asks permission to go. Daria was forced to follow him without asking. Even if her son hates her, she will not leave him unattended while there is a future threat. Hehheart reported that his master did not like strangers to enter the estate, so Yuri must go on alone. He took off his helmet and apologized for the unexpected visit. It was Hehheart. Hehheart frowned and asked Yuri to pass. He did not need an escort. Then Daria suddenly appeared, which surprised the boy. For the Empress, this was also the first meeting, and she also wanted to say hello. It would be impolite not to, smiles the butler. Of course, he understands everything. The butler led the guests inside the mansion. Lord Robert received them in his own study. Welcome, everyone, greeted their host. He said he had been waiting for his grandson for a long time. Nice to meet you, Grandpa, answered Yuri. The Lord also paid attention to Daria. She was glad to meet him. Robert asked to communicate without formalities. Yuri's mother, you could say, the daughter of a lord, so let her feel free here. The girl thanked him in return. She had imagined this man to be completely different, and he is calm and gentle, and he presented the grandfather with an envelope as a gift. He thinks that he will be able to remember the look of his own sweet grandson. Of course, he wants to read the letter too, although his eyesight in old age is not what it used to be. The boy is ready to read the letters out loud. Hehheart looked at the prince and considered him happy. The Empress agrees with this. It is strange for her. If you look at the Lord, it does not seem that he could decide to make Yuri his adopted son without the consent of the same. The Empress turned to the Lord and asked permission to ask him a question. Why does he want to adopt Yuri? This question can be discussed at the founding celebration, answered an angry Hehheart. The master reassured the servant. This question was not addressed to him. He did not need to answer. The butler was forced to apologize. Daria noticed this pressure. The Lord looked calm only because Yuri was nearby. So, she was asking about the reason for the adoption? Lord Robert simply wants to protect his grandson. It's about the boy's story with Straggler. Yes, Klaus put the prince in danger, so grandfather couldn't watch it. But in that case, the Duke's house Straggler was to blame. Okay, the Lord waved it off and asked the boy, "Can grandfather know why he is here?" Yuri dreams that grandfather will talk to his father. Unexpectedly, the grandfather interrupted his grandson. He wanted the boy to leave. Unexpectedly, one of the escort knights took off his helmet. They returned. It was Emperor Alexander Klaus. The Lord frowned. His greeting was addressed exclusively to Yuri and his mother. I don't remember inviting Klaus here. He is here as an escort from the Knight's Guard, the ruler replied. Alexander is ready to stop his father immediately if he does anything suspicious. Daria looked at Hehheart. She thought the warrior guessed that the emperor would come here. The Lord asks his grandson for forgiveness for making him wait. What does the boy want? He hesitated and could not give a clear answer. The Empress doubted that in such a situation anyone would decide to call them to reconciliation. She asked the owner's permission to visit the garden. Yuri loves flowers, and he was looking forward to meeting the garden that his grandmother, Lady Cecil, valued. Daria wanted to show the boy the garden before sunset. Grandfather asks Yuri to go and have some fun. Now is the time when carnations bloom especially beautifully. Hehheart took the mother and her son to the garden near the mansion. According to the butler, the fact that His Majesty was accompanying Yuri as a guard knight surprised everyone. He wondered if the Empress had been informed. But even for Daria, her husband's arrival was a complete surprise. When there is misunderstanding between people, difficulties often arise, says Hehheart. According to his master, the mansion is ready to receive Yuri and the Empress. It is a pity if there is no agreement between them, the servant thought to himself. And it is a pity for Daria, but the day will not come when she will make the right decision. Once the girl would have listened and taken Yuri to another place. This proposal would have sounded tempting. And now, in the unpredictable actions of the Emperor, she feels an awkward warmth. Daria was worried about both Lord Robert and His Majesty. But first of all, she had to apologize to her son for not listening to his request and coming here. Soon they were already in the garden. The Empress bowed down to her son and asked for his forgiveness. The boy did not understand. What does his mother mean? For neglecting his own feelings, she answered. The son feels betrayed. Although initially his mother made a promise, but broke it. Yuri should have realized that his mother would worry, but he still caused her and his father anxiety for his whims. Daria said that she loved the boy. She asked him not to hide his feelings and give them free rein. He did everything he could to avoid causing anxiety. And the fact that she couldn't accept it and came in the end, that's her own whim. His Majesty probably thinks the same way. She apologizes for standing in the way of a solution with her son, and he may be angry because of that. The boy suddenly burst into tears. When his mother arrived, everything inside him was spinning. It was the first time he had felt something like this. He wanted to cope on his own, but in the end, he created problems for his father. Yuri asked his father to stay in the castle. That's why he wanted to apologize, but here everything is stabbing from the inside, pointing to the heart. Mom said he can be angry, but the boy has not learned this. He cries. He is sad. The poor guy didn't know how to express it all. Daria hugged her son and asked him for forgiveness. Lord Robert at that time reminded Alexander of his words, where he reported his intention to listen to him. Why is the Emperor here? The Emperor came to say that he is not ready to fulfill the parents' wish. Is he talking about adoption? Asked the Lord. Grandfather plans to look after the boy while Leo is away. The child does not belong near the ruler, considering that he is a reaper. The Lord believes that his father, Leo, should be in charge of his upbringing. What is he saying? Alexander is indignant. Looking into the boy's eyes, he understood this for sure, said the grandfather. The child looks as if Robert will see Leo again in childhood. Yuri is Leo's son, not Alexander's, said the Lord. Such a good child cannot be the son of a reaper. Brother is dead, whispered the emperor, clenching his fists. He asks his father to think about the age of the little prince. The Lord will tell about everything at the founding party. He considers Yuri a smart boy who will choose where to be. Alexander was very angry and reads the words of his parent as excessive fantasies. He is sure that Yuri is his son. The heart of the current emperor's father was broken for the first time immediately after the latter's birth. Then Robert's wife died in childbirth cessel. Leo looked at his mother and didn't understand why she wasn't waking up. The father was kneeling in front of his wife's bed and crying. Alexander was born at the cost of his mother's life. And after that, he became the object of his parents' hatred. But then he decided to become the best so as not to be left alone. One day, when Alexander was doing his homework, Leo came up and put a wreath on his head. A gift for Klaus. The brother smiles. The younger one thinks that now his father will be angry with him. There is nothing to be angry about because Leo just came to visit his brother, a person who should not have been born. Alexander thought sadly about himself. Leo sat down next to him. He likes talking to his brother the most. There were times when the boy envied Leo. But the most important thing is that his brother was his support. When they were present at training, Alexander asked Hehheart to be stricter with him from the next day. The boy wanted to become a real shield for his brother. Leo was everything to his younger brother. Then, halfway through the battle, Alexander approached his dying brother, who reproached him. He asked him not to follow. It was dangerous. Leo then asked the younger one for forgiveness for being such a brother. At that moment, the boy felt the fear of losing a dear person for the first time, and the pain that the father felt at the funeral of his son. The younger one is a reaper for him. These words of his father explained everything exactly. Alexander killed his mother and brother, even the heart of his parent, the reaper of death. He cannot even wish to live next to someone, and he cannot love anyone. If he never wants to again. The emperor sat on a bench and looked at his wife and son. He considered himself worthless. Soon, Daria came to him, asks for forgiveness for frightening him. Alexander also apologized for his bad behavior. The wife asks her husband to pass on some words to his son, who was playing with flowers. On his head is a wreath of carnations. The emperor did not understand what it was at first, but Daria explained everything to him. He remembered the same construction that Leo had once given him. The wife turned to her husband and confessed her love. He was surprised by such words. Carnations have such a meaning too, she explained. The ruler remembered Leo again. He would go and apologize to his son now. Before this, Yuri thought and did not understand. Is he angry or not? Wanted to cope on his own? No way. It is so difficult for a boy to be angry. He does not want to disappoint his father by showing his egoism. He doesn't want to express his own vague feelings. It's scary. Yuri didn't know if it was right to leave everything as it was. He remembered his mother's words when she allowed him to get angry if necessary. Lucas also apologized to the prince. The boy thinks that it takes a lot of courage to express true feelings. He made a new wreath. So execution. He looked at his work with sadness. His father came up. The prince was confused and did not know what to say to his parent. The latter gave his son his wreath and asked for forgiveness for coming to talk without permission. The boy confessed. There was a day when he visited a flower field, and then the child couldn't give his father the bouquet. That's how it is, the emperor said with a smile. He stood up and spoke about the need to return. After all, they were making the empress wait. Watching his father and grandfather, Yuri realized how talkative he was, and how difficult it is to tell the truth about your feelings. And now the boy realized there is a feeling that he wants to express more than anger. Yuri caught up with his father and said to him, "Does he know how a mother made a door to the heart of a parent for her son? And the boy wants to open it now." The prince looked at the emperor with affection. The ruler asked his son, "What happened to him suddenly? Did he really scare the boy with that squabble of glances?" Alexander did not understand how to act in this situation. dead man had once playfully done with him. Leo Point, I've heard that you can have fun like that, said the Emperor, even though he himself had never tried it. Yuri only laughed in response. He liked it. The prince felt ticklish, and his father apologized to him. The boy wondered what his father wanted. For Yuri, this could be a clue to open the door he needed. Alexander admitted that he had no desires. There shouldn't be any, but the ruler considers it his duty to bring peace to Ilvaria. Yuri can't do anything great, but he has a proposal. And he whispered in his father's ear what he didn't dare say out loud. What to do? Asked the prince of the emperor. There is little time before the founding festival. We must return and prepare, answered Alexander. Until then, this is their common secret, said Yuri happily. In the palace, they chose a suitable robe for the prince. The maid is sure that he has grown noticeably. Johann recommends that the boy eat a lot and grow big. After that, they left the estate. What Yuri wanted to tell, he will tell at the upcoming foundation party. Grandfather will be waiting for it with impatience. He saw his grandson off with a smile, but he was not calm. So, talk about adoption and union was postponed until the celebration, concluded Daria. It seems that His Majesty is now busy preparing for the holiday, but I will have to consult with him in the near future. She asked Johann, is he sure about the necessity of staying here? He is the Emperor's assistant. Should he be especially busy before the celebration? The knight asks, not to worry, he has made an excellent arrangement. Did you simply beg His Majesty? Emma asked discontentedly. He laughs. What is she saying? After all, in negotiations, place, time, and person are important. During rest, when the Emperor was in the mood after taking care of the horses, then Johann said that he would later tell the ruler how the height measurement went. Then he slipped away from there. Emma asked the knight not to use Yuri as an excuse to escape from Alexander. Johann and does not use. Daria thought about the warrior's words. Perhaps this year at the founding celebration for Lord Robert, there will be favorable circumstances. The celebration will be where he ruled before.